The boy had a pair of dragonfly wings, but he kept them hidden for 17 years. He even turned down Xiaohua's confession because of it, because every time they touched, a stinging pain would surge from his back, as if the wings were about to burst out. All of this started 17 years ago, when he sprayed an insecticide called kunkin onto a dragonfly. The dragonfly turned to powder instantly, and flew straight into his mouth. The next day, wings had grown from his back. He was terrified and anxious, and did everything he could to hide them. He couldn't let the world know his secret. He feared isolation from society, or worse, being sent to a lab. That day, he turned down Xiaohua's invitation again, but Xiaohua sat outside and refused to leave. Uncle Han wanted to be his support, no matter what the boy was going through. Hearing this, the boy was deeply moved, so he decided to go see a movie with Xiaohua. They walked the streets like a couple, unaware of a shadow trailing behind. When they arrived at the theater, Xiaohua accidentally spilled juice on her clothes. She stood up to go clean herself in the restroom, but not long after she left, the room went completely dark. Just then, a staff member burst in, shouting for everyone to evacuate. But before he finished his sentence, he was pierced through the chest by a monster. Panic erupted, and people ran in all directions. But the monster charged straight at the boy. The boy fell to the ground, trembling in fear. The monster had the deadly arms of a mantis. It now saw the boy as prey and wanted to devour him. While trying to escape, he ran into Xiaohua returning from the restroom. The monster, enraged by the interruption, lunged at her in fury. It threw her through a window down to the street. The boy jumped after her without hesitation, catching her in his arms. Even though many people below were filming, even though he knew he'd expose himself, he didn't hesitate for a moment, because Xiaohua once said she would never leave him no matter what. So he spread his wings, landing steadily in the air. But Xiaohua fainted in shock at the sight of his wings. He immediately took her to the hospital. Fortunately, only his back was caught on camera, but even that was enough for a classmate to recognize him. His classmates started calling him a freak, and avoided him on purpose, but the boy didn't care. As long as Xiaohua accepted him, what he didn't expect was that after waking up, Xiaohua screamed at the sight of him. She told the monster to never see her again. Heartbroken, the boy went home, blaming it all on the wings on his back. He grabbed scissors to cut them off, but the pain made him stop. He went to the rooftop, ready to end his life, and so he jumped. Just when he thought it was all over, a woman suddenly appeared on the rooftop. She stood on the building like Spider-Man. And what she said next completely shocked him. To save the girl he loved, the boy exposed the dragonfly wings he had hidden for 17 years, but in return, he was shunned by the world. What hurt him most, though, was that the girl he saved also saw him as a monster. She told him to never come near her again. Brokenhearted, he went to the rooftop, ready to leap and end it all. But just then, a girl with antennae on her head walked along the building to stop him. She told him there was a way to return to normal, and if he trusted her, she would take him somewhere. There, he wouldn't have to face everything alone. Thinking back on his 17 years of loneliness, he followed her onto a school bus without hesitation. The vehicle stopped inside a tunnel. She pressed a button nearby. A blinding light shone on the boy's face. What he saw inside left him stunned. The girl told him this was Hive Academy. Everyone here had used a certain insecticide, which caused their bodies to mutate through tissue restructuring. But the company that made the insecticide had disappeared. A mysterious person built Hive Academy to gather and protect those who had mutated. Then the girl led him into a laboratory. After learning the boy's intentions, Professor Ma showed him a video. In the video, a man with a fly's head held a glass of green juice. After drinking the juice, his body began to twist. His insect traits started to disappear, and he quickly returned to human form. Professor Ma told him the medicine was called Yasuo suppressant. It was the only known cure to become human again. The strong-bodied boy was eager to drink it, but Professor Ma said the suppressant was extremely hard to make. There was only one way to get it. He had to attend school there and graduate as the top student. To become human again, he had no choice but to stay. The girl then helped him with the enrollment. The boy chose the insect department, where Professor Ma taught. But as soon as he arrived in class, he faced his first test. As the announcement broadcasted the test start, all the students frantically rushed out of the classroom. While the boy stood in confusion, a seemingly harmless boy appeared behind him. The boy explained the rules of the test. They had to find Professor Ma hidden in the mountains and retrieve a USB from him to pass. But there were only 16 USBs. First come, first served. Upon hearing this, the boy immediately opened his wings and took to the air. From above, he saw the flag marking Professor Ma's location, and also many students brawling for the test. Without hesitation, the strong boy flew toward the flag. Luckily, he grabbed the last USB. But just as he thought the test was over, Professor Ma took out his phone and sent a message to all students. The message listed the 16 students who got USBs. The boy broke into a cold sweat as he read it. Now, he feared he would become a target. Sure enough, a spider mutant appeared behind him, telling him the real test had just begun. The boy with dragonfly wings, tired of being ostracized and betrayed by his girlfriend, was determined to become human again. To do so, he enrolled in a school full of mutants. If he could graduate as top student, he would receive the cure to become human again. But things weren't so simple. There were all kinds of mutants here, each with disturbing abilities. Now the boy became their target. just for holding a test-passing USB. With only a pair of wings, he could only flee. Then he met the boy who had helped him earlier. That boy led him to hide in a cave. But just as he expressed his gratitude, the once harmless boy suddenly stabbed his forehead with a poisoned stinger. The boy collapsed to the ground, weakened. He looked at the boy in despair. This was his first friend at school. The boy dropped his disguise and showed his true nature, mocking him for being an idiot. Everyone here is a rival. Only fools trust others. He snatched the USB from the boy and laughed as he flew out of the cave. But the boy refused to give up. Before the poison fully took effect, he pulled out the stinger from his forehead and took to the air with all his strength. But the wind poison made him slower than the boy ahead. Then his eyes glowed green. He had awakened the dragonfly's compound eye skill. Dragonflies are top insect predators because their eyes are made of mini honeycomb-like units that allow them to track movement in 360 degrees. With this skill, he now hunted like other mutants. The boy ahead had become his prey. He flew under the boy, punched upward with all his might, and knocked him out. The USB slipped from the boy's hand. He reached out to grab it. But a hand suddenly snatched it first. It was a woman with muscular thighs. She took the USB and vanished at high speed. The boy was about to give chase, but saw the other boy falling. From this height, a fall could be fatal. Saving him meant losing the USB. That would crush his hopes of becoming human again. Even so, he chose to save the boy without hesitation, because he believed a human must not watch others die. After rescuing the boy, he still wanted to chase the woman, but the wind poison started acting up. He couldn't hold out anymore, and collapsed to the ground, unconscious. He collapsed to the ground and passed out. When he woke up, a burly old man stood beside him. The old man said the exam would end in 5 minutes. The boy had already failed. Hearing this, the boy felt deeply upset. He began desperately explaining to the old man that he was ambushed and poisoned, which led to his USB drive being stolen. The old man gave a faint smile. He loudly told the boy, if you want to achieve a goal, fight and seize it. In this school, strength is what makes you outstanding. After speaking, he tossed a trash bag to the boy, asking him to throw it out, then turned and left. After the old man left, the boy stood there, disappointed. He had ultimately failed. In regret, he slapped the trash bag onto his head. He felt something hard hit him. Opening it, he found a USB drive inside. Looking at the sky, he murmured, 5 minutes is enough. Then he frantically flew toward the school. At the same time, Professor Ma stopped the old man, asking why he did this. The old man replied, perhaps it's been a while since I saw someone with the heart of a noble. This is a bottle of insecticide worth 1 yuan. 225. 6 minutes and 51 seconds, 1 yuan. Using it to exterminate pests, your body's DNA will recombine with the insects. Many used it unknowingly, leading to bodily mutations. As a result, they faced human rejection. Then a mutant school called the Hive emerged. They developed an antidote to revert to human form, Yasoni. Many joined the school for it. This boy with dragonfly wings was one of them, but only the top student here could obtain it. Mutants would do anything for it. In class, a man threatened classmates to hand over their student IDs to get the antidote. Losing an ID meant disqualification from the next exam. The boy with dragonfly wings refused to comply, but was beaten unconscious. A classmate tried to intervene, but was pinned to a desk by the man. When the boy woke, he was in the infirmary, cared for by his senior, Li Shizhen, who brought him to the school. He told her his student ID was stolen. Li Shizhen told him not to worry and to rest, saying she'd get a replacement and return soon. After Shizhen left, his classmate didn't wake. Learning this, he cursed the boy as a fool, because IDs couldn't be replaced, and stealing them was tacitly allowed by the school. The boy stood frozen. Meanwhile, Shizhen faced alone the 5 mutants who stole the IDs. She aimed to take them back single-handedly. The leader mocked her overconfidence. Another mutant sneaked behind to ambush Shizhen, but she grabbed his arm and slammed him to the ground. Others came to help, but they were no match for her. The leader stood by the shore, threatening to throw the IDs into the water. Shizhen lunged to snatch them. The robust man retreated into the water. As a mutant of the water beetle, the strong 2 powerful claws suddenly extended from his back, pinning Shizhen underwater. Her strength diminished greatly in water, yet she still resisted the man's claws fiercely. But he grabbed her neck with both hands. Now Shizhen could no longer fight back. He pressed her fully underwater. At the critical moment, a green Shizhen's head emerged from the water. The man was pinned beneath the boy. The man fought back with punches. The boy's dragonfly compound eye skill activated again, dodging the man's fists repeatedly. Then the man's claws stabbed toward the boy. He felt a chill on his back, and swiftly dodged the fatal strike. Shizhen shouted for him to go back. A freshman like him didn't need to risk his life here. The boy recalled meeting Shizhen, her pure demeanor. How could he leave her alone here? Besides, he didn't come alone. His classmate, a mutant with beetle traits, quickly defeated the others on shore. As the man stood stunned, the boy seized the moment, charging at him with incredible speed. Dragonfly speed combined with his body weight. His fist landed on the man's face like an airplane. He grabbed the man's claws. using all his strength to slam him to the ground. The boy reclaimed the student ID. He told the man that even as a mutant, he should live like a human. Shijin looked at the boy in the sky, her eyes full of affection. This was an exam tied to life itself. As long as you're caught by this old man, not only will you fail the exam, but you might even lose your life, because they are all insect mutants. To become strong, you must learn the law of the jungle, survival of the fittest. However, in this dog-eat-dog world, no one is an absolute powerhouse. Even the strongest insects have natural enemies that counter them. So the first lesson the old man taught them was how to escape. This young boy with dragonfly wings, relying on his dragonfly abilities, evaded the old man's pursuit multiple times. This performance greatly pleased the old man. If the boy no longer wished to return to being human and fully utilize the abilities granted by the dragonfly, he could become stronger than anyone else. However, they didn't know that this exam would turn into everyone's nightmare. At that moment, in the underground isolation room of the Hive School, a powerful mantis mutant was imprisoned. A woman defeated the guards and arrived there, followed by a little boy. The boy was holding the key that could free the mantis mutant. After the woman opened the gate, the mantis slowly walked out. She looked at the two in front of her with extreme excitement, because her favorite thing to do was to prey on fellow mutants. The woman boldly pushed the boy in front of her. How miraculous! Even after turning into insects, their blood is still red. Then the woman prepared to take the mantis to meet her master. At that moment, the mantis suddenly smelled the scent of prey. Unable to suppress her urge to hunt, she had to capture it. So the woman cooperated and brought her before the crowd, injuring a classmate to draw everyone's attention. Huaxin tried to intervene, but was stung by the woman's venomous stinger. Losing consciousness, the old man was about to rescue her when the mantis, lying in ambush, appeared. She plunged her claws into the old man's chest. The young boy was horrified. Wasn't this the same mutant he encountered at the cinema before? The mantis also recognized the boy, approaching him to devour him. At that moment, the woman behind her stopped her, saying business was more important and to leave quickly. The mantis had no choice but to carry the unconscious Huaxin and leave. Senior Shijin wanted to rescue her, but the old man grabbed his arm, because school rules prohibited students from fighting outsiders. He had already contacted the school's security team, waiting for them to handle the rescue. However, the young boy ignored these rules, spreading his wings and chasing after them. He couldn't just watch his classmate fall into the hands of villains. The old man cursed him as an idiot, because for a dragonfly, a mantis is an unbeatable natural. Sure enough, as soon as the boy flew in front of the mantis, he was spotted. Though he dodged several attacks with his agile movements, and even landed a punch on her skull, her tough exoskeleton made his hand bleed first. This punch made the boy realize he couldn't defeat the monster before him. This mantis mutant was specializing in hunting weaker mutants. But this time, she met a tough opponent, a boy with dragonfly abilities. Yet in nature, dragonflies can never defeat mantises. He could only rely on his wings to dodge attacks and buy time. He wanted to stall until help arrived to save his unconscious classmate, but he was soon pinned to the ground by the mantis. At the critical moment, his classmate woke up, saw the situation, grabbed the boy, and ran. With one leap, they covered dozens of meters, and the mantis couldn't catch up. It turned out his classmate was a grasshopper mutant with powerful jumping strength. But after they safely escaped, the boy wanted to go back and subdue the mantis because she was too dangerous. If she wasn't stopped, other classmates would get hurt. So the boy and his classmate made a plan. At that moment, the mantis and her accomplice were still searching for the boy. The boy suddenly appeared from behind, looping a branch around the woman's head and tying her to a tree at lightning speed. Then he kicked the mantis in the head, but the kick didn't do much damage. The boy himself was knocked back several meters. The mantis raised her blade-like legs to counterattack, and he could only keep retreating. At that moment, his classmate arrived, throwing something toward the boy. He flew into the air and caught it, and it was a chainsaw. The mantis, with her arms severed, began slashing wildly like a storm. The boy could only block with the chainsaw. He didn't expect the mantis to be so powerful. The chainsaw was shattered. At that moment, his classmate tried to sneak attack the mantis, but was spotted and kicked to the ground. The boy went to save her, but was tightly restrained by the mantis's blade-like legs. Just as the boy was about to be devoured, a figure swung a fist and struck the ground. The mantis was instantly blasted away. The person was none other than the boy's teacher, Professor Chi. His injuries had been treated by the school's doctors. Now he stood before the two students, ready to give them a live combat demonstration. His left hand began to glow red, emitting wisps of smoke. Facing the charging mantis without a hint of fear, he raised his left hand and threw a punch. As the smoke cleared, the mantis was burned to a charred husk. The boy was stunned by the sight. Professor Chi told him this was called a superpower. As every mutant's abilities grow, this power will be unlocked, but if used before fully mastered, it can cause side effects, like what he was experiencing now. Every use left his arm unusable for a time. If the boy didn't want this to happen, he needed to train to merge this superpower with his own strength. So, to become stronger, the boy decided to train under the professor. A few days later, the professor gave the class a new mission. In groups of 4, they were to search for the Kunkin pesticide that causes mutations, but since the company that made it vanished, this pesticide was extremely hard to find. Any group that found it would receive a generous reward. But what Professor Chi didn't expect was that this simple mission would lead to casualties. A girl, to save the boy she loved, was pierced through the chest by a monster. Lying on the ground, she felt this might be a kind of release for her. She had lived since childhood in a cold, damp basement, and because of that, she was mocked and ostracized by classmates. They even gave her the nickname Cockroach Girl. Even so, she never lost hope in life. Because she had a brother who loved her dearly. Whenever she complained about the hardships life brought her, her brother would always tell her that no matter how tough or exhausting life was, there would always be moments of happiness. If you could seize a bit of happiness from an unfortunate life, that was a win. For her, supporting her sister through college was her only happiness. For her sister, her brother was the only light in her life. But that day, that light was the cause was overworking despite his failing health. Even earning 1 more cent mattered to him. Yet this was only the beginning of the girl's nightmare, because poverty always plunged her life into darkness. Without her brother's protection, her classmates began to bully her without restraint. They brought a box full of cockroaches to her home. In her terrified gaze, they dumped them all out. She was terrified by the cockroaches crawling all over the floor and backed away repeatedly. Then she saw the insecticide her brother had just bought before he passed away. She grabbed it and sprayed with all her might. But the cockroaches killed by the spray turned to powder and flew into her mouth. The cockroach genes fused with hers, and she became a powerful cockroach mutant. But she didn't seek revenge on her classmates. Instead, she left that painful basement behind and joined a school full of other mutants. 3 years later, she met a boy here who had dragonfly wings. That boy had once risked his life to save her when she was in danger. From that moment on, she felt an unexplainable affection for him, and the boy had long harbored feelings for her deep in his heart. One day they received a mission from the school to go out and search for the insecticide that caused mutations, but the product had long disappeared. It would be extremely hard to find. After searching all day, they found nothing. As they sat resting on a bench, they received a call from a classmate. He said a large stash of insecticide had been found in a warehouse outside. Hearing this, the girl felt uneasy. Something that had vanished for so long. How could it suddenly appear in bulk? It had to be a trap. Sure enough, when they arrived, their classmate was already gone. Suddenly, the girl was ambushed and severely injured, collapsing to the ground. Her attacker turned out to be a mantis mutant with enormous blade-like arms. Seeing the girl he liked lying wounded, the boy was filled with rage. He struck back with his wings in fury, but even a powerful punch to the mantis mutant's face didn't leave a scratch. It had a hardened exoskeleton. The mantis mutant explained it was called assimilation. By consuming other insect mutants, their skin would become tougher, and their power would grow. Now, the boy was no match for her. Even though he landed several hits, they did no damage. He was soon exhausted and collapsed, unable to move. The mantis mutant raised her powerful arm to strike the boy. At that moment, the girl suddenly appeared and blocked the fatal blow. The boy stared in shock at the dead girl in his arms, overwhelmed with grief. The next second, her body and wings emitted a dazzling green light. The boy had always been the weakest mutant, but now he lost all reason. His body mutated again. At this point, his human side was completely replaced by primal beast instinct, because the girl he loved had given her life to save him. The man was thrilled to witness this transformation. If she could consume the boy in this state, she would become incredibly powerful. She lunged forward with her blade-like claw, but the boy instantly appeared before her at an incredible speed. The mantis mutant, still lying on the ground, struck again with her blade. But the boy simply reached out one hand and caught it firmly. Right now, only one thought filled his mind. Either he eats her, or she eats him. Seeing this, the mantis mutant began to panic. She couldn't understand how he'd suddenly grown so powerful. Before she could react, the boy grabbed her head and smashed her straight into the ground. Even lying there, the mantis mutant tried to strike back, but the boy bit down on her claw. The boy, having lost all sanity, tore the mantis mutant's claw off in one move. The mantis mutant, still lying on the ground, tried to launch a sneak attack on the boy. The boy before her suddenly bit down on her claw. The boy, completely out of his mind, ripped the mantis mutant's claw clean off, thrown into the air. At this moment, the scissor bug truly panicked. She began to beg for mercy loudly. However, the boy acted as if he didn't hear a thing, still furiously tearing at her arms. The entire warehouse echoed with her screams. Finally, the boy grabbed her head and kicked her half-dead body into the air, preparing to eat her. Just then, a figure suddenly flashed past the boy and fell to the ground. It was a jellyfish mutant, also the scissor bug's master. She released a toxin from her hand and injected it into the boy, rendering him immobile. She was curious about this boy, who had become so powerful without consuming other mutants. She was full of curiosity and wanted to take him away for further study. But Hive Academy's people had already arrived, so she had to leave with the scissor bug first. After they left, the boy carried his beloved girl outside. The Academy's resident doctor, upon seeing her injuries, said that aside from the cleaning crew from 58 home services, everyone else should leave. She gently removed her gloves, and a cyan light burst from her hands. Then she reached toward the girl's wound, and in the next moment, the wound miraculously healed. Turns out the doctor was a cordyceps mutant. Her ability was powerful healing. Just when the doctor told him it was too late. Because her heart had stopped beating long ago, she could heal wounds, but not bring people back from the dead. The boy hugged the girl in grief, tears streaming down his face. As a cockroach mutant, the girl was no exception. She was surrounded by a strange light. The skin on her face began to peel off. She completed her transformation and awakened. The boy held her hand, crying with joy. Then the two tightly embraced. A man tied a teenage girl to a tree. As he reached toward her with evil intent, a boy appeared to stop him. Seeing his plan interrupted, the man threw the boy aside and fired black feathers from his body. The feathers were like blades, cutting the boy's skin. It turned out the man was a bird-eating poison-borne mutant. He belonged to a mysterious insectoid organization. This group mimicked chemical attacks, turning many innocent people into insectoids. They even purchased many exotic species, creating a variety of powerful insectoid mutants. They had fought openly and secretly with Hive Academy for many years. The man was an undercover agent planted there, under his master's orders. He was to take the blue crab mutant girl back for research. Now that his identity was exposed, he launched an attack on the boy in anger. But the boy wasn't ordinary either. He spread his wings and flew into the air. The man fired a barrage of feather darts from his back. The boy had to keep retreating, but his escape route was already blocked by feathers. He had no choice but to land and confront the man. He dashed toward the man at high speed and unleashed a powerful punch. The boy thought the blow would hurt him, but the man landed steadily. Then the boy's vision began to blur, and he collapsed unconscious. He hadn't realized the feather. When the boy woke up, he found himself lying on a soft bed, with the poison crab mutant girl beside him. Soon, the girl also woke up. Despite the boy's explanation, he still got slapped in the face. After they got up, they found themselves locked in a cabin. The boy repeatedly explained that the man brought them there, but the girl, as if she knew the man, said he wouldn't do that. Just then, they heard the door open. They readied themselves for battle, but it was just a cute little girl calling them to eat. They followed the girl outside and saw that the place was full of children. The boy was completely confused. He never imagined he'd be kidnapped to a kindergarten, but the girl seemed reminded of a painful memory and immediately returned to the cabin. At this moment, the orphanage director stepped out. He explained to the boy everything that happened last night. The man was named Juan Hung. The girl was named Daohua. They were classmates who grew up together in this orphanage. Last night, Juan Hung suddenly returned, left them here, and then departed. After speaking, the director said he'd check on Daohua and left. Shortly after he left, a woman came and took the little girl. Before leaving, she gave the boy a hand-drawn picture book, but the woman took the girl to a basement, where the director was already waiting. A staff member pulled a giant centipede from a box, and the director held a can of Kuan insecticide that could cause mutations. They planned to turn the girl into a mutant. This was a group of powerful mosquito mutants, but their eyes were now filled with fear, because the boy standing before them was their natural enemy. He was a mutant of the dragonfly, king of flying insects. Their racial suppression left them trembling. The boy now saw them as prey, ready to devour them. Yet this was all their own doing. They ran an orphanage on the surface, but secretly turned these children into various mutants. The boy uncovered this secret from the picture book the child gave him, so he followed the trail to the basement, saving a child about to be transformed into a giant centipede at the critical moment. The mutants tried to overpower the boy with numbers, but he gave them no chance. Moving at incredible speed, he cut through the crowd, taking them down instantly. At the same time, Juan Hung found Daohua, confessing that the basement was used to transform children. Daohua had been turned into a blue crab mutant by them. He also said he joined a mysterious organization. This group aimed to create a world of insect people. In this new world, insect people wouldn't need to hide wings or tails. He hoped Daohua would join them to change the world. Daohua punched Juan Hung in the face because she believed one's fate should be in their own hands. She urged Juan Hung not to stray down the wrong path, but Juan Hung was determined to take her with him today. So they fought from upstairs to downstairs. Juan Hung fired countless feathers from his back at Daohua, but the feathers couldn't harm Daohua's hard shell. Seeing this, Juan Hung flew forward to grab her. Unaware, Daohua slammed her tail into the ground, performing a 360-degree spin in the air, then kicked Juan Hung to the ground. Juan Hung stood, growing angry. With a grim face, he peeled off the tape on his cheeks, revealing two venomous stingers like sprouts. Then he rushed at Daohua like a viper with incredible speed. Unable to dodge, Daohua was struck in the neck by his stingers. Juan Hung injected a small dose of venom, knocking Daohua unconscious. As Juan Hung prepared to take her away, a figure descended from the sky, kicking him away. It was the dragonfly mutant boy, now wearing goggles on his face. Seeing the boy disrupt his plan again, Juan Hung fired countless feathers from his back at him, but with the goggles enhancement. The boy wove through the gaps in the feathers, reaching Xuanheng and landing a punch to his face, then raising his knee for a heavy blow. Now Xuanheng was utterly enraged, using the same move to attack the boy. As Xuanheng's stingers neared him, the boy kicked at Xuanheng's chest, sending both flying backward. But what the boy didn't expect was Xuanheng rising as if possessed. He took to the air, and countless shadows surged behind him. This was a peak duel between two mutants. Spider mutant Xuanheng struck first, firing countless sharp feathers at the boy. As a dragonfly mutant, weaving through the feather gaps to reach Xuanheng, the boy gave him no chance to recover, using the dragonfly's rapid flight to charge again. After taking 2 hits, Xuanheng was furious, rising as if possessed. A pair of black wings formed behind him. He flew into the air in rage. Countless viper shadows emerged behind him. As they materialized, he rushed at the boy, but as Xuanheng reached him, the boy turned into a green flash and vanished, using his ultimate move, Rabbit Lock, to seal Xuanheng's every path. Xuanheng was stunned. Lying on the ground, Xuanheng could no longer fight back. Yet all this was for Daohua, lying on the ground. Xuanheng wanted to take her to join his organization, to transform the world into one of mutants together. But the Boys' Hive Academy existed to stop them. As the boy went to take Daohua away, he found she had suddenly vanished. At that moment, a man appeared behind him, holding Daohua. But as the boy turned to attack, the man vanished without a trace. The vanished man, holding Daohua, appeared in a tree. He spoke to Xuanheng, lying on the ground. The leader already predicted your plan to win over Daohua would fail, so he sent me to take him away. And today, he'll undergo feeding training. Hearing this, because the so-called feeding training meant forcing mutants to eat the flesh of their own kind. After eating, they'd become addicted, losing their humanity, obeying only the master. Xuanheng didn't want Daohua, his childhood friend, to become a walking corpse, promising to try persuading Daohua. But the man ignored him, vanishing from their sight. Xuanheng tried to chase after them, but found he had no strength left. He entrusted the boy nearby to help save Daohua. The boy readily agreed, as this was his mission all along. But they had disappeared without a trace. Where could they find them? Xuanheng explained that the man possessed the ability to teleport. But Xuanheng had set up many spider webs near the orphanage, so even if the man hid well, he'd leave traces by triggering the webs. Meanwhile, their leader was tempting Daohua to eat the flesh before him. Daohua, of course, refused. So a wasp mutant appeared behind him, stinging him with a venomous barb. After being stung, Daohua's gaze grew vacant. This was the wasp mutant's ability. Anyone stung by him would obey him completely for 2 hours. Just as the controlled Daohua was about to eat the flesh, Xuanheng and the boy descended from the sky. The man was the most powerful among mutants, able to spin spider silk, use water-based magic, and even ride a giant centipede. Yet his dream was to eradicate humans, turning the world into one ruled by insect people. So he raised many mutants, forcing them to eat their kind's flesh, turning them into killing machines loyal only to him. Thus, people called him the breeder. Now he had set his sights on Daohua, a blue scorpion mutant, wanting to make this powerful species his right-hand assistant. Just as Daohua was about to eat the flesh, his 2 friends swooped in to stop it. The breeder, seeing their arrival, wasn't fazed, but excitedly showed them his breeding farm. Xuanheng, the spider mutant, enraged, launched an attack at him. But then Daohua suddenly charged forward, slicing off Xuanheng's venomous fang with his tail. Then he landed a punch on Xuanheng's arm. The force of that punch, nearly breaking Xuanheng's arm. It turned out Daohua had been injected with venom by the breeder's wasp mutant, which made him lose his sanity. And for 2 hours, he'd fully obey the wasp mutant. The dragonfly boy tried to help, but was entangled by the breeder's spider silk. He then created a web, trapping the boy in the air. But to his surprise, the boy bit through the silk, breaking free. Then he rushed at him with incredible speed. Such speed shocked the breeder, who took a punch. The boy didn't stop, turning into a green blur, blocking the breeder's escape. Punch after punch landed on his face. The boy used his ultimate move, Crushing Rabbit, to surround him. Yet the trapped breeder showed an excited expression. He raised both hands to the sky, and a torrential rain poured down. The rain hit the boy's wings, slowing his movements. The breeder shot silk to wrap around his neck. As the boy tried to break free, he found breathing nearly impossible. A water sphere formed around his head, condensed from the rain. The boy knelt before the breeder, no longer able to resist. Xuanheng had also been defeated, slumped on the ground. So the wasp mutant controlled Daohua to eat the flesh again. The boy struggled with all his might to break free, but was powerless. At that moment, a black feather pierced the water sphere, freeing him. It was Xuanheng, using his last bit of strength to shoot the final feather from his body. The breeder only saw a green flash, and the flesh in Daohua's hand was snatched by the boy. The boy hurled the flesh far outside. Without pausing, he flew to the roof, clinging upside down to the ceiling. The breeder felt as if a shotgun was aimed at him. The boy kicked off with his hind legs, shooting toward the breeder like a bullet. Yet the powerful breeder grew even more excited. The boy's strength made him want to make him his assistant too. He slowly extended his right hand, and a massive water prison enveloped the boy. Grabbing the boy's neck, he excitedly said, "When you wake, you and Daohua will be my dogs." As the boy was about to pass out, a blurry figure appeared beside the water prison. With one punch, he shattered the prison, rescuing the boy. It was the boy's girlfriend, Shijin, a cockroach mutant. After they went missing, Fengchao Academy tracked them down via clues. At the same time, a bright light flashed behind the wasp mutant, and Professor Chi strode in. The wasp mutant seemed furious upon seeing him, preparing to attack Professor Chi. But the breeder shot Silk to restrain him, ordering his men to take him away. The breeder suggested that further fighting would harm both sides, proposing a truce and parting ways. But how could Professor Chi agree? His left hand's veins began to pulse with power, and he threw a full-force punch at the breeder. The massive impact made everyone think the breeder was surely injured. But as the smoke cleared, they were shocked. A giant centipede had protected the breeder. Then, twisting its massive body, the breeder finally left. Powerless to fight back, the group fled in panic. But then the breeder stopped, telling them he had bigger plans ahead. Before riding the centipede away, after the breeder left, the group returned to Fengchao Academy. The boy thought the matter was over, unaware that his nightmare was just beginning. His girlfriend confronted him, demanding to know why This best friend had slept with the protagonist days ago, making the heroine so angry she threw down her hairdryer, climbing over the wall at midnight to find him. The heroine saw a honeybee's shy, terrified expression, trembling non-stop. To survive, she knelt and explained everything in detail. After learning the truth, Shijin, blushing, wanted to make it up to him in embarrassment. The next day, in the school's office building, after a high-level decision, the school prepared to confront White Hair's organization head-on. After interrogating Li Juanhong, they learned about the pet store organization. The pet store aimed to overthrow modern society with Jungle Juice, an organization to protect a new society of insect people. Li Juanhong also told them about a place called the Breeding Farm, where finished insect people were stored, hidden somewhere on an island called Black Rock. The scene shifts. On the commercial street of the school city, Qiuchan and Shijin are on a date. Spicy teppanyaki makes Shijin's face flush red. They run into Goldie and Greenie, also there to eat, who tease Shijin about being in love. They mention heading to the school's equipment research lab later, where various studies are conducted to create gear for students. The group heads to the research institute together. Goldie and Greenie say they're making weapons to take on Qiuchan. So they can win, they must become stronger, or forget topping the rankings. They might not even survive. Their words solidify Qiuchan's resolve. He must get stronger. To beat White Hair, he goes to the counter to order custom gear. In the pet store's secret base, White Hair holds a white rope, tightly binding a woman to a chair. Quite the romantic scene. Entering staff freeze in shock, finding the scene awkward. In truth, the woman was forcibly brought back. Shin Jian, furious, wants to take down White Hair, which is why he tied her up. As the rope loosens, the poison needle grazed the white-haired guy's head, leaving a small cut. She said, "If you get in my way again, I won't hesitate to kill you." The white-haired guy was very curious about why she held such hatred toward Professor Chi. He said he could help Shinjian set a trap, and even provide some manpower to help her go against the school. In the classroom, Professor Chi announced that a competition would be used to select students to investigate a site on Black Rock Island. This mission would provide bonus credits. Since Chansen had been kidnapped last time, he missed class and lost points. He was worried he wouldn't be able to get the top grade, so he was determined to earn credit through this. The competition was a 4-on-4 battle. The team that captured the opponent's flag would win. If they located the opponent's base, they could also score by capturing team members.
The first round was Team Xiuzhan versus Team Green Girl. Tiandawawa and Che Huixing were assigned to defend the base. Team Green Girl also left 2 people to guard their base. She and Gold Girl ran through the forest to find Xiuzhan. Suddenly, Shijin jumped out. After several battles, her strength had greatly improved. Ordinary students were no match for her. Green Girl and Gold Girl hurriedly retreated. But suddenly, Green Girl turned around and launched a powerful counterattack. Her signature weapon was a hammer. It was powerful but slow, too sluggish to hit anyone. Suddenly, Shijin's leg was entangled. Gold Girl had used silk threads to bind her. Green Girl immediately swung her hammer down. Xiuzhan quickly rescued Shijin. Although Green Girl and Gold Girl weren't very strong, they had been inseparable since the first semester. Their teamwork was extremely tight. It was still too early to tell which team would win this battle. Although this woman had skinny arms and legs, her weapon was a massive meteor hammer. Each blow made the ground look like it had been bombed. One hit could probably be fatal. Her ability came from a meteor hammer spider. She was very skilled with high-impact weapons. But all spiders have one weakness. They're not good at melee combat. Spider silk and venom are how they compensate for physical frailty. Shijin rushed in to fight at close range, but got caught in the threads. It was Gold Girl again. Her powers came from the silkworm goose. She could manipulate silk threads freely to bind her targets, just as they were about to cuff Shijin, eliminating her. A few sharp spikes burst out. Shijin tore through the silk. Her chosen weapon was spiked knuckles, extremely sharp, immune to Gold Girl's control. Green Girl threw her meteor hammer. Shijin focused her energy and punched the incoming weapon. With a single punch, the meteor hammer shattered instantly. Green Girl shouted for Gold Girl to quickly bind her with silk, but she needed more time to prepare. Shojin leapt onto a tree trunk, gathering momentum, and launched at high speed. That strike could have been lethal. Professor Sher's eyes widened, but Shojin halted right in front of Green Girl. A massive shockwave swept the field. The intimidating force made Green Girl tremble and drop to her knees. She was naturally eliminated. Gold Girl ran away in fear. She fled to a cliffside, almost falling off by accident. Shijin rushed over to save her, but Gold Girl pulled her down instead. Midair, she cuffed her, eliminating Shijin. Turns out she was faking it the whole time. Just to win first place, she successfully balanced the team numbers. Suddenly, a voice came through Shochan's earpiece. It was Che Huixing. She said 2 enemy defenders had come to their base to steal. Shochan immediately turned around. She was about to wipe. Those 2 enemy defenders had actually abandoned their own base just to attack the male lead's base. Shochan rushed, about to activate her secret equipment, but Shijin stopped her. Save that for later. Che Huixing couldn't move, but Qiandawawa made it back. The 2 intruders immediately went into combat mode. A beetle charged straight at Qiandawawa. A thick tree trunk was snapped clean in half. She possessed the twin-horned beetle gene, giving her immense strength. In the air, a woman in white robes scattered a flurry of white powder, like snow. It looked absolutely beautiful. That was her ability, allergenic toxic powder. Even a light touch of it would cause extreme pain and struggling, just like how Che Huixing got hit. But Qiandaohua laughed. Her emperor shoes aren't afraid of poison powder. As a battle maniac, she charged forward to fight the beetle head-on. The girl in the white robe trusted the beetle deeply. In front of Wanli, it was ridiculously strong. The beetle also unleashed its power. Its appearance became fierce. The ground beneath Qiandaohua even sank. But Qiandaohua, after being controlled by Shenjian, became stronger. Just by brute strength, she knocked the beetle away, then leapt into the air and kicked the white robe girl unconscious. Crisis averted. Xiao Kan also grabbed the opponent's flag. Victory achieved. In the classroom, everyone was shocked by Xiao Kan's overwhelming strength. The growth of these 2 was the most noticeable. The second round of the match ended for unknown reasons. Soon a girl was seriously injured. Her eyes were covered in white cloth. At this moment, a guy in a hat walked over to get close. He patted Shijin, then patted Qiandaohua, and casually mocked Che Huixing for doing nothing. But once the match started, Qiandaohua grabbed Che Huixing and told her to bring her mouth close. On the other side, Shijin also began undressing uncontrollably. It turned out, the girl from the opposing group with furry arms could induce an uncontrollable state of arousal. That guy's plan was to poison them. The poisoned heroine began undressing in front of everyone, and on Qiandaohua's side, she was pushing Che Huixing to the ground by force. With too many spectators around, Xiao Kan and the others had no choice but to knock the girls out and tie them up. This time, Che Huixing told Xiao Kan to guard the base, while she went to find the enemy. Since in the previous match, she was of no use. This time, she wanted to prove herself. She wanted to go alone, and carry her teammates, lead her teammates to glory, and to live up to her mother's expectations. She also wanted to take and return to being an ordinary person. Not long after, Che Huixing encountered a chubby girl who could emit sound waves. Che Huixing blinked once, jumped behind her, and with one kick, knocked her out of the game. She also obtained their team's base. She went alone to the map location, but found it was an empty field, and no one was there. Suddenly, she heard cracking underfoot. A hole opened up, and she was dragged down. Turns out it was Hat Guy. Their team had a cute girl in black stockings, who possessed a strong ability, who possessed a solidifying ability, suited for digging caves, freely roaming underground. At this moment, beneath the surface, she carved out a massive space, her masterpiece. Hat Man. This guy's pretty sinister. He grabbed a handful of sand from the ground, aiming for Che Huixing. After sand got in her eyes, she was relentlessly beaten, even taking a kick that sent her flying far. Hat Man kept taunting, mocking for holding them back. Furious, Che Huixing fell for it, charging straight at Hat Man. A red glow erupted from Hat Man's hand, and he shot something directly into Che Huixing's eyes. Blood streamed out. She was likely blinded. The girl from the last match was also gravely injured. By her like this, Che Huixing. As she was about to eliminate Che Huixing, preparing to cuff her, a green flash streaked by, appearing before her. saving Che Huixin. The cuffs had been snatched. At this moment, Xiao-chan, equipped with new gear, an enhanced version of protective goggles, arrived. This cute girl in black stockings, looking adorable, was actually incredibly strong. In the dim underground, Che Huixin's eyes had been blinded. Xiao-chan arrived just in time, 10 minutes earlier. After the enemy base's location was revealed, she rushed over. With the new goggles, Hat-man possessed red fire and supernatural abilities, able to spray acidic substances. She arrogantly declared she'd blind Xiao-chan's eyes, burning his arm. Luckily, the goggles protected his eyes. Hat-man was slow in terms of speed, making Xiao-chan's high speed an easy way to land attacks. She couldn't react at all, but Hat-man wasn't afraid of Xiao-chan. He had already arranged for teammates to wait outside. Once she entered, they blocked, plunging the underground into darkness. Xiao-chan couldn't see anything, but with her red fire and abilities, she could see perfectly. She kept attacking Xiao-chan, mocking him with insults, saying Group A's strength was overblown. Black Silk Girl emerged from underground, grabbing Xiao-chan's legs, preventing him from flying. Hat-man produced a large amount of strong acid, aiming it at Xiao-chan, forcing him to block with his arms, worsening his burns. In the critical moment, Xiao-chan adjusted his gear's limiter, enhancing his compound eye ability. Seeing everything clearly, he immediately counterattacked. Hat-man and Black Silk Girl were no match for him. Xiao-chan, moving at high speed, was everywhere in the underground space. Scared, Black Silk Girl fled, burrowing underground. Hat-man was left alone, getting pummeled, with no ability to fight back. Suddenly, the ground exploded into a huge hole. Xiao-chan's punch sent Hat-man soaring into the sky. It looked painful, and the onlookers thought so too. Hat-man took a punch from the protagonist, knocking him out instantly, eliminating him from the fight. Seeing this, the two girls rushed to guard the base's flag. As Black Silk Girl nearly grabbed it, Xiao-chan sped in, snatching the flag. Spotted Hair Girl, out of options, pulled out an insect person tranquilizer gun, aiming and firing at Xiao-chan. But Xiao-chan's goggles, with their limiter removed, saw the bullet in slow motion. He swung the flag, deflecting the bullet back. Then, as a green flash, Professor Chi, watching on a screen, smiled faintly. Xiao-chan carried the flag out of the base, securing Group A's final victory. The girls in the audience, seeing his dashing moves, were captivated. Che Huixin, having held them back, felt utterly ashamed. Like before, she tried to go it alone. Professor Liu came over, healing her eyes with a single move. Hearing Xiao-chan fought 3-on-1, and still won, she was shocked. Without comparison, there's no pain. She began to feel inferior. Professor Chi noticed, giving her 2 lessons. But Che Huixin couldn't grasp them. After the match, everyone gathered in the dorm for a meal. Celebrating their task qualification, Blonde Girl offered to make clothes for their mission. She could create any fabric by consuming the right material. Days later, at Black Rock Island's dock, Xiao-chan, Shijin, Daohua, and Che Huixin, 4 in total, arrived to carry out their mission. The assistant instructor told them to convincingly pose as tourists, but Che Huixin remained visibly gloomy, still brooding over the match. She hadn't yet understood Professor Chi's words, desperate to prove herself. She didn't want to fall behind her teammates, vowing to be the first to find the breeding farm. In their room, they began distributing tourist disguise clothes, all made by Blonde Girl. They turned out to be swimsuits. At Black Rock Island's beach, to avoid suspicion, they posed as tourists. Everyone started handing out clothes for disguising as tourists. These outfits were made by the Blonde Girl. They turned out to be swimsuits. At the Black Rock Island beach, to avoid suspicion, everyone pretended to be tourists. So the mission for the first day was to enjoy themselves thoroughly. Only if they had fun would they look like real tourists. They played around and laughed together. Only Che Huixin looked sullen and unhappy. After everyone got tired of playing, they sat down to eat. Xiao-chan noticed a glimmer of light. He opened his auxiliary and saw across the way someone was watching them through binoculars. That glint earlier was a reflection from the lenses. To avoid being noticed, Xiao-chan quickly told everyone not to look. They immediately understood the situation and even prepared for battle. But shortly after, the person with the binoculars walked away. It was probably just a farm employee on patrol. The anticipated battle didn't happen. Everyone returned to the guest house to rest early. Tomorrow, the investigation would begin. Xiao-chan noticed Che Huixin had disappeared somewhere. Eager to prove himself, Che Huixin went out alone to find the person spying on them with binoculars. He found the man watching the sunset by the shore. Che Huixin approached him, pinning his neck with his leg, demanding he reveal the breeding farm's location or face consequences. But the old man turned and mistook Che Huixin For his grandson, someone nearby explained that the old man had dementia, waiting here daily for his grandson's return. Often mistaking others, the old man wasn't a breeding farm worker, another wasted effort. The old man grabbed Che Huixin, asking to be taken home, saying he was hungry. Che Huixin had no choice but to escort him. Meanwhile, Xiao Kan, realizing Che Huixin was missing, went out to search for him. As the sun set, a speedboat approached. The Real breeding farm personnel had arrived. This man also possessed dragonfly abilities. For the intense offense and defense of soccer, Che Huixin had been fascinated and passionate since childhood. As an adult, Dragom, after joining the soccer team, in one match, his missed shot caused the team to lose. He trained harder because of it. One night, while running, he was forcibly turned into a mutant with jungle juice. Because of this, he wanted to rest for a while, planning to return to the team soon, but was told he didn't need to return, and was expelled. Others called him a burden to the team. This left a deep psychological scar. He constantly feared being a burden, terrified of being abandoned for someone else, so he was always eager to prove himself. Days passed in a flash. They searched the island for the breeding farm, but found no clues. Teammates worried about Che Huixin's recent low spirits. Che Huixin walked outside alone, meeting the old man watching the sunset, waiting for his grandson. After a brief chat, he noticed the old man had fallen asleep. Che Huixin took him home. At the old man's house, he saw an old phone on the floor. Opening it, he found it belonged to the old man's grandson. It revealed the grandson was taken by the breeding farm. The phone contained a distress message. Che Huixin rushed back to tell the others, but encountered an enemy. The enemy was tall and bulky, immensely strong, and attacked immediately. Che Huixin confirmed the breeding farm was on the island. Meanwhile, as Che Huixin hadn't returned for a long time, Qian Daohua went out alone to find him. A sea breeze blew by. A man appeared behind Qian Daohua, confronting her. She turned to look. It was the breeding farm worker with dragonfly abilities. Professor Chi's mission required immediate retreat upon encountering fed individuals. These people underwent ingestion and brainwashing, forcibly enhancing their abilities, turning them into monsters, no longer within the realm of humanity. The enemy, Che Huixin faced now, though not very smart, was incredibly strong, easily knocking him into the air with one strike. Clearly no longer human. Unable to fight back, Che Huixin decided to return for help. He ran at full speed. The monster couldn't catch him. He felt he'd finally accomplished something. While celebrating, Che Huixin suddenly stopped. Looking back at his previous position, the monster hadn't followed. If it escaped, the old man would be in danger. Sure enough, when the strange man saw Che Huixin flee and couldn't catch up, he turned toward the house. He violently kicked the door open, intending to drag the old man away. Just then, a rock hit the back of the strange man's head. Che Huixin had returned to save him. The freak was obsessed with capturing people, especially the younger, the better. Enraged, he charged straight at Che Huixin. Che Huixin jumped into the air, lifted his leg, and delivered a fierce kick. He intended to defeat the freak head-on and rescue the old man. Otherwise, carrying the old man, neither of them could escape. He went all out, attacking the freak with everything he had, but still ended up injured by the freak. He was barely holding up in the fight. The freak, on the other hand, wasn't hurt at all. Suddenly, the freak leapt into the air and slammed down hard. He grabbed Che Huixin with one hand. Che didn't want to be a burden again. If he got taken back, the freak could finally eat some meat. Che used the strength in his solid arms and swung his legs up, delivering a heavy kick to the freak's arm. His whole body was flung into the sky. With a crazed expression, he unleashed a slash with all his might, and the freak's claw was actually severed. It turns out, in his frenzy, he had unknowingly released his ability. His leg had turned into a scythe. The young man looked down. What is this? He saw the oily bristles on his leg had become a scythe. It was his first time triggering his mutant form. The freak came at him again. But this time he felt no fear. Che Huixin countered with a flying kick. His left leg was caught, but that gave his right leg a chance. He swung it down and cut a deep gash across the freak's forehead. His ability came from Dinera simplex, also known as the Ashuri assassin beetle, one of the most aggressive and predatory insects in existence. And it undergoes a special type of evolution. Some individuals grow giant due to environmental triggers. At this moment, his scythe-like leg had emerged through that transformation. Then Che Huixin charged in and landed another heavy blow. The freak took the hit and trembled. Che Huixin had clearly grown stronger, but in a moment of carelessness, a wine bottle hit the freak's head. The old man had thrown it, shouting to protect his grandson. The freak turned around in fury, grabbed the severed claw from the ground, and aimed it at the old man. The old man collapsed to the ground. Blood splattered out. Che Huixin had shielded him with his own body. Grandpa, you can't die here. You still need to meet your grandson. Then he passed out. The freak picked up Che Huixing and took him away. His teammates noticed something was wrong. Xiaozhan went out to search for Che Huixing. An hour passed. Still no sign of him. Suddenly, he discovered large footprints on the ground. He followed them and found a cell phone. He picked it up and checked its contents. There was a clue inside. Just then, the old man emerged from the bushes. Please save my Huixing. From the old man's words, Xiaozhan realized Che Huixing had been taken. Following the clues on the phone, he arrived at the dock, and after the tide went out, he discovered the entrance to a breeding facility. But behind him, the red-winged dragonfly guy from the enemy team had been wanting to meet him. Fight me, he said. Let me see just how strong that dragonfly really is. At this moment, the enemy also spotted the protagonist. According to what was discussed with the assistant instructor, if you encounter an enemy, don't engage head-on, run immediately. But the red dragonfly was too fast. It caught up with him instantly. Where are you going? Come play with me. He threw a punch, but it was dodged. The red dragonfly hovered mid-air, taunting him with trash talk. He revealed he just ran into Qindaohua and had a fight with him. He went a little overboard and ended up injuring him pretty badly. An enraged Xiaokan counterattacked right away, but it was blocked with one hand. The red dragonfly was a seasoned fighter. He immediately kicked Xiaokan in the gut, then raised his fist and sent him flying into the water. And it wasn't over. Just as Xiaokan came up for air, he grabbed him by the head and dragged him across the surface, then flung him hard, slamming him into the wall by the shore. He couldn't move. Their strength levels were clearly not even close. Meanwhile, Che Huixing opened her eyes and saw that her wounds had been bandaged by someone, but her leg was chained up, and she was locked in an underground dungeon at the farm. In that cage, there were many others, people from the island who'd been captured. They were used as food for whatever was in a cage across. At that moment, a man opened the door and shouted, "Meal time." Turns out, he was a worker, doing patrols at the island's farm. He dragged an old man to the opposite cage to be fed, but with so many people around, not a single one tried to resist. As he left, the man said, "You're next, Jiang Huixing." That's when Che Huixing realized the ant guy was actually the old man's grandson. No matter how she tried to persuade them, they remained timid and afraid. Angrily, she stood up and clenched her teeth. With one kick, she broke the chain they thought was unbreakable. Everyone looked on in disbelief. In truth, deep down, they had been hoping for a miracle too. Now she told them to turn that hope into strength and move toward victory. What are you all still standing around for? On the sea, Xiaokan and the red dragonfly were locked in fierce battle. The two moved so fast, they looked like streaks of light, colliding nonstop, and Xiaokan had now equipped special gear. Even so, he still couldn't land any real damage on the red dragon. A man had actually beaten a girl to such a state. When Shi Jun came looking for people, he only saw craters left behind by the battle. Realizing something had gone wrong, he rushed back to get reinforcements. At this point, the entire island had lost all signal. All the communication towers had been destroyed. Suddenly, a weakling jumped out. You could tell at a glance. They had been fed by the monsters. A wave of smoke drifted over, stunning the weakling. Shi Jun immediately punched him. The monster collapsed and stopped moving. It was the teaching assistant who arrived. His ability came from the tobacco hawk moth. He could spray smoke, causing hallucinations. 706. 00. Shijin. Before they could exchange a few words, they were surrounded from all sides by a group of weaklings, though no one came out at night. This was too blatant, wasn't it? Meanwhile, Xiaokan and Red Dragonfly chatted while fighting so desperately. Just for credits. Are you insane? I heard you bugs act like dogs to get the antidote, obeying the professor's orders, right? But in that sense, it's just like the breeding farm. Becoming slaves for a taste of meat. Red Dragonfly threw a punch, but Xiaokan blocked it. Xiaokan flew at full speed, so fast he looked like streaks of green light, encircling Red Dragonfly. Her eyes couldn't keep up with Xiaokan's speed. Using his high speed, Xiaokan landed a heavy punch from behind, then landed on the ground. Where Red Dragonfly stood, a huge crater had formed. When Xiaokan thought she couldn't stand again, she stood up, tearing her clothes, revealing rows of abs. Then unleashing her aura, a pair of pincers sprouted from her back. Her ability came from the corpse ant. The wings on her back were evolved ant scales. In this state, she could even control sandstorms, relentlessly hurling sand at Xiaokan in the sky. Xiaokan was trapped by the sand, unable to fly. He fell to the ground, buried by the sand. Red Dragonfly then walked to the breeding farm's gate, opening it, waiting for the tide to rise. The base had been exposed. She came to destroy this breeding farm. She also said she'd soon kill all of Xiaokan's teammates. At that moment, the tide had engulfed Xiaokan. She worried for her teammates, her own life hanging by a thread. Her frozen state ability began to go berserk in the breeding farm's dungeon. Che Huixin, after breaking her ankle chains, had been kicking the iron bars. For half an hour, the cage showed no marks. But her legs, 773,000, were shaking uncontrollably. Suddenly, an earthquake hit, and the power went out. Everyone saw. She couldn't break the cage. The spark of hope they'd felt extinguished. They had already accepted that they were going to die. At that moment, Ankai stood up. If there was a way for them to survive, he would help. So Che Huixin told him that the school could produce an antidote. After hearing that, Ankai clenched his arm. The iron bars twisted immediately. He actually pulled open a huge gap. Hope lit up in the eyes of those inside again. Just then, a monster came over to stop them. Everyone rushed out of the cage. Some used chains to restrain the monster. Some even jumped on her. To limit her movement, Ankai, riding a skateboard, slid in behind the monster. With a powerful shove, he lifted the freak off the ground. Che Huixin seized the moment, charging forward, extending her scythe, and leaping up, slashing the freak cleanly with one strike. A massive wound appeared on her body, and she was done for. Everyone was thrilled. They'd finally taken her down, and could regain their freedom. They rushed to open the door. But when it swung open, a flood of seawater poured in. No matter what they tried, they couldn't stop it, as the water rose higher. And everyone gave up hope, their lives hanging by a thread. The water stopped surging in, and began to recede. They followed the flow's direction, passing through the drainage tunnel, and successfully escaped. They even ran into Qiandaohua by chance. Meanwhile, Xiuchan had burst out from the sandy water, while the red dragonfly across from him was battered and bruised. But something was wrong with Xiuchan. An evil grin spread across his face. What was going on? In this berserk state, he'd lost control, fighting purely on instinct, even using his teeth, trying to devour his opponent. His lifeless eyes overflowed with energy, though his attacks were savage. Their power was terrifyingly real. A single strike could leave Red Dragonfly's body numb, and Red Dragonfly was a battle maniac, craving this kind of raw, brutal combat. He was too strong. Even in his berserk state, Xiuchan was being overpowered, constantly on the defensive. By now, the breeding farm was flooded. Che Huixin and her group had successfully escaped with others. The two looked back, seeing Shijin and the assistant instructor heading their way. The mob of weaklings that had surrounded them earlier was too numerous, but the assistant instructor used smoke to temporarily knock them out, though he couldn't drive them all off. Suddenly, a green streak crashed from the sky. It was Xiuchan, beaten down, still in his berserk state. He was bloodied and battered. After rising with a roar, Xiuchan's gaze locked onto Shijin, seeing her as prey. The assistant instructor's smoke appeared just in time, making Xiuchan lose his target. In this state, he attacked indiscriminately. Then Red Dragonfly arrived, and Xiuchan chased after him to keep fighting. Already gravely injured, he didn't know when to stop. Shijin and Qiandaohua, trying to follow, were knocked out by the assistant instructor's smoke, who refused to let students act on their own anymore. But Che Huixin didn't listen. She leaped over the smoke, chasing after Xiuchan with his dropped goggles. She'd heard a theory: a crazed beast could calm down if its eyes were covered. Che Huixin caught up to their fight below, leaping with force, grabbing Xiuchan's shoulder with one hand, and putting the goggles on him with the other. Xiuchan thrashed wildly in the process, but she finally got them on. Xiuchan stopped, regaining consciousness, yet the berserk energy lingered, pushing him into an unknown momentum state. Now lucid, Xiuchan entered a strange new state as he sensed the momentum. Red Dragonfly suddenly vanished, using his teleportation ability to burrow underground and reappear behind Xiuchan. While no one noticed, he grabbed Xiuchan by the neck, lifting him into the air, heading elsewhere to continue the fight. Che Huixin immediately gave chase, determined to catch him, but couldn't keep up. Red Dragonfly began to taunt. "You're so weak. You could run till you die and never catch up. After all, those who fly are definitely superior to those who run on the ground." So he flew off, leaving Che Huixin standing there in shock. In the distant forest, Xiuchan was flung into a tree. Red Dragonfly once again unleashed his sandstorm control ability. A sweeping wall of sand blasted towards Xiuchan. It was like a violent tornado. Xiuchan hurriedly flew out of the sandstorm's range. The enemy laughed wildly and gave chase. Suddenly, a flash of green light. Xiuchan began counterattacking with his stance technique. He clenched his fists, his body turned into light, and he launched attacks from all directions against Red Dragonfly. The air was Xiuchan's home turf. The only threat was the sandstorm attack. At that moment, Red Dragonfly flew toward the ground. Xiuchan intercepted him midair and landed a direct hit. As long as it's not on the ground, as long as there's no sand, he could beat Red Dragonfly. Xiuchan pushed off from the tree trunk, charging at the enemy with dynamic stance, knowing he couldn't dodge. Red Dragonfly retracted his howl ability into his body, boosting speed and evading the strike. In his evolved adult chair form, his speed increased, while Shioken was still in the recovery phase of his move. Red Dragonfly grabbed his head and charged downward at high speed. He intended to finish Shioken but unexpectedly, as they fell, Che Huixin rushed in. She had crossed the whole battlefield under Red Dragonfly's stunned gaze. Che Huixin unleashed dynamic stance, a powerful strike, and successfully defeated Red Dragonfly. Che Huixin kicked hard, finally taking Red Dragonfly down. Meanwhile, the Dragonfly who'd been knocked out by the assistant woke up. They were now surrounded by those who had received feeder training. It was impossible to shake them off now. They had no choice but to fight head-on. The monsters charged mindlessly at them. Many in the group were ordinary mutants who had no training. They didn't know how to fight at all. Qian Daohua threw a punch and knocked a monster away, but they had been enhanced. Their bodies were too tough. It didn't cause any damage. Seeing this, many people lost hope. Facing such a horde of monsters, they thought they were doomed. But the assistant didn't think so. There was still a way. For opponents with tough bodies and hard shells, you could still target their joints or weak points. Professor Qi had previously given Shizhun private lessons on insect martial arts, perfect for a situation like this. It was real combat technique specialized against insect people. Every punch Shizhun threw, every kick, struck the enemy's vital points. One punch per creepy monster. In just a moment, she broke the limbs of several monsters. It was fierce, for these huge and strong, tough-bodied monsters. Qian Daohua didn't know such advanced techniques. He could only power up using stance to enhance his strength and directly smash his enemies. Everyone was stunned by the two girls younger than them. Everyone was inspired and charged forward to join the fight. In the end, they succeeded in defeating all of the monsters. At that moment, the old man walked over and asked for help finding his grandson. He looked at him. At that moment, both of them were silent. When Ant Guy was a child, he followed his grandpa into the mountains to dig wild herbs, but he got lost in the forest. At the time, his grandpa had warned him, "If you don't behave, I'll leave you in the mountains." Ant Guy thought he had been abandoned and cried his eyes out in fear. But his grandpa found him quickly, using that very pair of binoculars. Now that he looked like a monster, there's no way his grandpa would recognize him, so he thought it'd be better to pretend not to know him. But the old man still raised that old pair of binoculars and looked at him. His voice, his tone of speaking, and the way his teeth chattered when nervous. The old man remembered it all clearly. He knew his grandson would never abandon family. Later, at the Black Smoke Island pier, when the school heard that Shioken had found the farm, they immediately built a ship and brought back those who had been trained and fed in the farm, as well as many ordinary insect people. However, because Ant Guy's grandfather was not an insect person, he couldn't enter the school, so he chose to stay on the island and continue taking care of his grandpa. He would wait until the antidote was mass-produced and available to all insect people. The scene shifts. Although the red dragonfly was captured for white hair, he had already completed his mission. He eliminated the exposed farm and also relocated the trained feeders who had retained their rationality despite being predators. Next, they were going to strike back. Time to take at least one of their pieces. At the moment, the Academy City is counting the gains from this mission. During the investigation, one captured alive was a member of the pet shop group, along with a batch of trained feeders from the farm, all thanks to Che Huixin, who discovered the farm's location. The assistant also reported on Shiokan's berserk ability. A few hours ago, Hat Guy approached Shiokan and the others to apologize for what happened during the competition. He suddenly threw his arm around Shiokan and dragged both him and Che Huixin away. Next thing they knew, they were at a restaurant. Across from them were three gorgeous girls. Hat Guy was so excited. He was shaking all over. Turns out the upperclassmen girls wanted a mixer and had asked Hat Guy to help arrange it. One of the girls was Professor Liu from second year, top of her class. Hat Guy was overjoyed and immediately started hyping the mood. He even suggested drinks and games. Che Huixin didn't really want to play, but then one of the pretty girls glanced at her. She immediately changed her mind. Not long after, Shiokan and Che Huixin were both slumped over the table. Shiokan couldn't hold out any longer. He was just about to leave, but then the top student upperclassman couldn't hold on anymore either. Shiokan couldn't hold on any longer. He was just about to leave, but the top-ranking senior girl couldn't hold on either.
Since she clung to her, she had to escort the drunk Shotai back to her dorm. In the end, with the other two girls nagging, she had no choice but to agree. As they left, the two girls exchanged cunning smiles. At that moment, Shijin appeared from behind. "What are you guys talking about?" On the way, The senior suddenly wanted to go somewhere else to continue partying. Sorry, I'm not really interested. The senior said again. Do you want to know the secret behind your ability to hide your power? Come with me, and I'll tell you. Turns out, she was the one who made Shotai's visor. Later, the two of them arrived at a lab. No one's here right now. Shotai was already so drunk, she was wobbling. Aloud up, the senior suddenly pushed her down. While her mind was dazed, she took off her clothes. Shotai was totally stunned. But that's not all. The senior even pulled out something. 2 unknown packets of something. She tore one open with her mouth. I'm going to extract a bit of your memory. Just then, the protagonist arrived right on time. She stood at the door, blushing as she watched. Wait a sec, are you really going to insert it? Don't worry, Big Sis here has plenty of experience. Shijin's eyes almost popped out of her head. Blushing, she rushed in. But it turns out, they were just drawing blood. The props from earlier were just alcohol swabs for disinfection. Turns out the professors had sent the senior to collect blood samples. But the senior was also very curious about the new transfer, Shotai. She said that and left. On the way back, Shijin was furious. First, Shotai had slept with Kiendawawa. Now she got pushed down by the senior. He was feeling threatened. Taking advantage of an empty dorm, he used the excuse of dinner to go back alone with Shotai. But after buying food and returning to the dorm, he found it packed. The whole class was throwing a party there. As soon as Shotai entered, she got pulled away by 2 girls. Shijin's plan for alone time was ruined. Meanwhile, on the professor's side, they had received Shotai's blood test results. His body did indeed contain dangerous substances. Inside him was essentially a top-tier time bomb. For everyone's safety, Professor Liu wanted to report the matter and have him quarantined. But Professor Sher stopped him. He wanted to handle the matter personally. The next day, Professor Sher called Shotai out alone in the woods. He said, the school believes you're a dangerous individual. As your supervisor, I have to eliminate you. Hearing that, Shotai was in utter disbelief. The scene shifts. White Hair led the poison needle heroine to the 7th basement level. They saw the giant centipede from earlier. It had endured Professor Sher's attack, and its entire body was now burned. It couldn't fight for the time being, and needed time to recover. Professor Sher would become a major obstacle to the pet shop's plans. From now on, they would set a larger trap to eliminate Professor Sher. This professor actually planned to kill a student. As Shotai looked on in disbelief, Professor Sher got serious. He activated his ability and struck at Shotai. After dodging the attack, he pursued and launched a second strike. Then a third. They exchanged several rounds in the woods. Professor Sher grabbed Shotai's hand and delivered a kick. Blood sprayed from Shotai's mouth, but it wasn't over. He began charging his ability, unleashing the same move he used on the giant centipede. Shotai flew up and narrowly avoided it. Professor Chi didn't hold back at all. He picked up a rock and threw it at Shotai. He had hidden an explosive inside the rock, blasting Shotai into the air. Then the professor stepped on him until he coughed up blood as he neared death. Professor Chi spoke. I heard from the assistant. You lost control and went berserk on Flying Eve's Island. 5 years ago, a student just like you. Do you know what he did? He killed all his classmates in one session. Because of his berserk state, his power was off the charts. My conclusion then was, I had to kill my own student. If I let it go, more people would die. You were also in a berserk state then, trying to kill Shijun. Just as Professor Chi was about to land the final blow, Shotai entered a berserk state again. He threw a punch. Everyone, directors, professors, did you see that? But this time, he didn't hurt anyone. With the last of his willpower, he bit down hard on his own arm. The school leadership saw this through the surveillance feed and decided to cancel the plan to lock Shotai away. Professor Chi's actions demonstrated his faith in Shotai to everyone. He was different from Shunjayan. At the hospital, Professor Liu treated all of Shotai's wounds. At that moment, Professor Chi turned and said to him, from now on, you must keep training hard and prove to everyone that as a transfer student, you're not a monster, but a human more ruthless than a monster. A few days later, in the classroom building, the blonde girl burst through the door. Shotai is fighting that maniac locked in the prison. The heroine shivered in fright upon hearing that. A few hours earlier, the professor had assigned homework in class. After the Black Smoke Island incident, Professor Chi noticed everyone's weaknesses. Based on those weaknesses, he assigned customized homework to the students. There are elemental counters between different abilities. Only by overcoming weaknesses can they survive future battles. Che Huaxin's ability is Wave Fruit. Its traits are speed and power. But she lacks tech. The professor told her to slice every incoming tennis ball. Danshin's ability is Banya Lazen. It can emit poison, but he doesn't fight head-on. He must land a hit on Shijun, who ranks number 1 in combat, within 7 days. Zheng Renji's ability is, but he can't dig through concrete. So he has to train his nails. This chubby guy is really strong, but he's slow. He must run 100 meters with weights in under 13 seconds. This green-haired girl is bad at throwing flails, and her body is weak. She needs to train her physique. This blonde girl is great at binding, but her material breaks easily. She needs to eat more tough, tear-resistant fabric. As for Shotsai, he was taken underground at the school. There's a huge training arena there, because when he loses control, he enters a berserk state. So his assignment is to train to keep his ability from going berserk. This time, his sparring partner is his natural enemy, praying mantis. As soon as the mantis was released and saw Shotsai there, he got excited and started walking toward him. Then immediately, his severed right arm had been replaced with a piece of equipment from the lab. Ever since Shotsai first encountered the mantis, his life has undergone a drastic transformation, and ever since that incident, he's never once defeated him. Now facing his natural enemy, he instinctively felt fear. So this assignment was very meaningful. It would be a stepping stone for his growth. This man's arm was more dangerous than before. Equipped with a device from the Institute, his entire body had an ability-enhancing exoskeleton. Shokin couldn't break his defense. He could only keep dodging. The small space here wasn't suited for his dynamic attacks. If the mantis caught him once, he'd be done for. That guy genuinely wanted to eat him. At this moment, Shokin raised his hand, asking the professor for a bathroom break. A break during the assignment? Was he too nervous? But he didn't head to the bathroom. He went to borrow equipment. Last time, he cut off the mantis's arm with a chainsaw, but this time's gear wasn't suitable for Shokin. A chain hammer hit himself. A tranquilizer gun couldn't pierce the defense. Che Huaxin's leg guards and needle-absorbing punches were powerless. Completely useless. Hitting the mantis's forelimbs caused no damage. He had to aim for the face and body. He activated the enhancement switch on his goggles, but the dizziness side effect made fighting impossible. After all that effort, he didn't harm the mantis. He was dominated the whole time, and this assignment had to be completed in the remaining 5 days. He went to find reinforcements. Shokin left the underground training facility. If this continued, he'd never finish the assignment. Could he really beat the mantis like this? Those weapons were awkward to use. If nothing else worked, he at least needed to fix the goggles' dizziness. Then he saw the senior who'd drawn his blood before. She was also the one who made his goggles. He hurriedly asked for help, begging her to fix the dizziness caused by the goggles. The protagonist wanted to solve the goggles' dizziness issue, but it couldn't be fixed. The goggles' principle was to enhance compound eye performance through compound eye mode lenses, giving him true dragonfly-like vision. He could only adapt to it actively. So, the senior gave Shokin a training method. Tie a hoop to a tree with a rope, then activate the goggles enhancement switch and fly around the tree. After vomiting multiple times, he found the trick, turning at a specific angle. Solved the dizziness. Days later, it was time to complete the assignment. The final day, Shokin returned to the underground training field. If he couldn't beat the mantis today, the assignment would be a failure. Before coming, the senior had prepared a gift for Shokin. The mantis charged confidently. Shokin dodged and countered, throwing a punch, knocking him back. This was the senior's gift. Knuckle spikes that could pierce the mantis's exoskeleton. Taking the punch, the mantis was dazed. Vomiting on the ground, adapted to the goggles, Shokin could unleash his fastest speed. His compound eyes predicted the opponent's moves. The knuckle spikes broke through defenses. Now, he completely dominated the mantis. But facing the next strike, the mantis smirked. He didn't dodge, taking it head-on, then seized the chance to bite Shokin's hand, then launched an attack. The situation flipped instantly. Hatman, watching from outside, panicked. Shijin was alarmed. The assistant instructor quickly opened the door, rushing in to stop the mantis. Professor Chi seemed calm, but was inwardly freaking out. But now Shochan had gone berserk. This protagonist was just too weak. Every hit landed on him, just as the mantis knocked off Shochan's goggles. She opened her mouth, ready to feast, as everyone was scared witless. What Professor Chi was waiting for arrived. He was about to transform. Green light burst from Shochan's eyes, and he entered his berserk state again. Shochan's strength surged instantly. With a flick of his hand, he hurled the mantis away, unstoppable. After a roar, he charged at the mantis in a frenzy. Biting down on her weapon, he snapped it in two. The mantis became the prey. The onlookers trembled in fear. Shochan's rationality was swallowed by instinct. To survive, he'd surely devour the enemy before him. Once he tasted it, his human life would be over. Had he resisted before, by mere chance, it seemed hopeless. Do you want to eat my flesh too? Let's be civil. We can share. Shijin called out to him desperately from outside. At that moment, Shochan's consciousness was lost in darkness. A voice kept repeating, "It's not me eating you, it's you eating me." The dragonfly he'd fused with was slowly consuming him. But when he heard Shijin's voice, he snapped awake. He fought back against the dragonfly in his mind. In reality, Shochan opened his eyes, suppressing the urge to feed. He sent the mantis flying, knocking her out. He successfully controlled his berserk state. What had just happened? Professor Sher told the assistant instructor to stand down. No need to intervene. He could return. It was truly incredible. Shochan's individual assignment passed successfully. Elsewhere, a group of predators had appeared in the school city's vicinity, preparing to launch their operation. On the scorching outdoor training field, the final checks for individual assignments continued. But Shochan was back in the hospital, receiving treatment, cared for by nurses. Meanwhile, Che Huaxin, Chen Daohua, Shijin, and others earned impressive scores. They got good grades, though some still hadn't finished. And so, the midterm individual assignments concluded. With free time, Shijin wanted to invite Shou-chan for tekbaki, but arriving at the classroom, she found Shou-chan tied up. It turned out everyone was scared after seeing Shou-chan go berserk last time, so they tied him up just in case. Professor Chi came over and told them the school had determined Shou-chan wasn't dangerous. Everyone could relax. The berserk state was just a side effect, only occurring in those with high insect DNA fusion. For example, Shin Ji-yun had gone berserk before, like how mice and humans share over 90% DNA similarity, or bananas and humans share 50%. Varying insect DNA fusion levels cause people to inherit different insect organs or traits, leading to diverse outcomes. The side effects are entirely preventable, so there's no need to worry. Shin Ji-yun was once Professor Chi's student. 5 years ago, she was a diligent, promising student, consistently topping the rankings each semester. Professor Chi thought highly of her, but because her ability could brainwash others, her peers isolated and ostracized her, claiming she'd brainwashed the professor to get good grades. They resented her ability and were jealous of her success. Once someone is ostracized, they become miserable. That's why Professor Sure doesn't want Shou-chan to suffer the same fate. Later, Shun Jian lost control of her ability and killed all her classmates. Upon hearing this, Hat Guy stood up and said, "Isn't that extremely dangerous? He must be locked up. I don't want to take classes with a monster." Hearing that made Shijin and the others furious. Professor Sure told Hat Guy that to suppress his rampage, Shou-chan had fought a natural enemy who could kill even when he lost control and bit himself. It didn't harm him. He fought desperately to suppress the side effects. He even managed things Shun Jian couldn't. He made it through. If you're going to you'd be better off building a good relationship with someone who might become top of the entire department. After class, Shou-chan walked down the street, thinking about how Professor Sure had stood up for him earlier, and how he had proven to the school in the woods that he wasn't dangerous, and completed solo assignments. Professor Sure had really helped him a lot. But suddenly, the research building behind him exploded. That location was exactly where the professor's offices were. It was actually the first move by the Predator organization, led by White Hair. Suddenly, another explosion occurred in the building behind him. The blast came right from the professor's office. The assistant instructor rushed in and saw Professor Sure holding an injured man in his arms. "Are you alright?" He was a normal insectoid brought back from Black Rock Island. He was planning to join next year and had just entered the classroom, but his body suddenly exploded. Then in the opposite teaching building, a flash of light appeared, followed by another explosion. Could it be them? The control room quickly activated the broadcast. "All residents and students, please evacuate to safe areas immediately." On the way out, Shou-chan saw a girl. What's wrong with her? There was actually a horn growing from her head. She looked in pain. In the next moment, the horn swelled up and exploded. Only one of her arms remained. This proved again that everyone rescued from Black Rock Island had been implanted with bombs. The Predators kept triggering their explosions. After each blast, the school's attention would turn inward, causing the guards at the gates to loosen. Easy to break through. They dared go this far because failure meant death. From now on, all entrances and exits would be restricted. During ID checks at the school, someone suddenly knocked off Shijin's hat, and he hadn't sensed a thing. It was a person he had never seen before. They struck at Shijin. Security guards rushed over immediately to block him. They recognized him as the suspect. So bold, attacking so brazenly in public. They immediately called for backup. The pink-haired guy's hand was shattered, revealing his inner arm. He also had a mantis ability. Meanwhile, the assistant helped Professor Sure down the stairs. Professor Sure was injured from the explosion and the side effects of his ability. He needed urgent treatment. But since the Predators were blocking the path ahead, the two old men decided to have a little chat. The assistant told the professor, "Let me handle this kind of small matter." Meanwhile, Shijin, in just that short moment, the pink-haired guy had already taken down all the guards alone. Now that was a real monster. And his next targets were Shijin and the others. The situation was dire. He had no choice but to fight. But just then, a flash of green light appeared. Your male lead had arrived. Smoke filled the entire area. But the guy across from them looked completely fine. "Can you take off your mask? You look suffocated." "If you say so, I will." How embarrassing. Seeing the assistant's impressive ability, the man extended an olive branch. "Why not join us?" But the assistant had already decided he would stay at the school for life. At the same time, the assistant stopped wasting words. He struck first. From the moment he saw this guy, he hadn't used his ability. The assistant suspected, like Professor Chi, this guy had side effects to his power. If so, he might have a chance. But things didn't go as hoped. The next second, a red glow lit up on the man's arm. He activated his ability. The assistant's right hand suddenly exploded violently. Turns out, the man's power came from the zombie flatchair ant. When facing enemies like ants, he would detonate his abdomen and spray deadly chemicals on them. And inside this man's body was an entire colony of explosive ants. His power was even more fearsome. Anyone he touched, he could detonate at will. The main perpetrator of the campus bombing incident was him. The situation was dangerous. The assistant clutched his hand and quickly retreated. Suddenly, a flash of green light streaked through the sky. It was Shiokan, rushing to the rescue. The man raised his hand and looked into the distance. You're lucky you met me first. That woman over there is way more dangerous than me. Meanwhile, Shiokan arrived just in time to save Shijun. Two girls had noticed the danger and notified him, but he was still a little late. All the guards had already been killed by the mantis, and the killer looked completely calm. That expression infuriated Shiokan, who was about to punch him, but Shijun stopped him. The guards already called for backup. We just need to hold out until they arrive. But the mantis didn't give them the chance. He teleported behind Shijun and slashed with his blade. Shijun leapt into the wind to dodge. The steel plate Shiokan used to block was sliced in half effortlessly. As the mantis tried to chain more attacks, Shiokan rushed up with another steel plate, interrupting his spell. But the enemy quickly chopped the plate into pieces. Taking the opportunity, Shiokan turned into green light, moving rapidly around the area. Too fast to be tracked, he launched an attack, but unbelievably, even at that speed, the mantis girl could still see his movements. She counterattacked, aiming for Shiokan's neck. At that critical moment, Shiokan suddenly fell backward. He had been saved by Shinya's silk thread, while the mantis was stunned. Green-haired girl used a fire extinguisher as a flail and hit him, but the mantis instantly sliced it apart. In the next moment, Shiokan flew at high speed and used silk thread to bind the mantis. Shijun leapt high into the air, jumped to the ceiling, and kicked off the wall like a missile, crashing into the mantis with a massive shockwave. The ground shattered from the impact. It was such a terrifying move. Everyone was confident it would take the mantis down, but Shijun's legs were badly injured from the recoil, bleeding heavily. Still, to someone with her power, it was a minor injury. But when everyone's guard was lowest, the mantis stood back up, igniting her momentum. She spun rapidly, swinging her arms at high speed, her hand blades slicing across Shijun's neck. I told you, you're prettier without the hat. In Shochan's despairing gaze, the hat flew off. This insect, called an orchid mantis, could be mistaken for an orchid if not closely observed, ambushing prey by disguising itself as a flower. Its beautiful appearance must not deceive you. Like other mantises, the orchid mantis is a top predator in the food chain. After slicing Shijun's neck with her sharp hand blades, the mantis turned, but her neck was suddenly grabbed by Shijun, who'd just been beheaded. She kicked off the ground, swinging her hand blade again, cutting Shijun's arm. Landing steadily, she thought, what's going on? I clearly slashed her neck, seeing the wounded neck and arm slowly healing. The mantis couldn't believe her eyes. She charged at Shijun again, wildly swinging her sharp hand blades in midair. Shijun saw her fierce momentum, but noted she wasn't fast enough. Seizing the moment, she focused her strength into her fist, striking out with a punch. A powerful shockwave erupted, but the mantis did a backflip, attacking Shijun from behind. At the critical moment, Shochan unleashed his hunting, rushing forward at blinding speed. With a deafening crash, the mantis was flung into the wall. At his fastest, most opponents would have been knocked out. Yet, in the distance, the mantis stood right back up, her eyes blazing with killing intent. She swung her hand blades again, charging at Shijun. Shochan shouted for Shijun to dodge, but Shijun didn't. Instead, she grabbed the mantis's blades with both hands. The outcome was obvious. Under everyone's horrified stares, Shijun's hands were severed once more. But the next moment, the mantis's delicate face was covered by a hand and slammed hard into the ground. She was stunned. The severed hand had fully regenerated. As Shijun raised her fist to strike, the overwhelming pressure made the mantis sense danger. She wrapped her left leg around Shijun's waist, kicking her right leg at Shijun's head, breaking free once again. Her tenacious vitality and strength. The mantis realized this was a cockroach's ability, but she'd never heard of one surviving decapitation. It turned out, after Shijun's near-death revival, Professor Liu took her to the lab for genetic testing. The results showed her body had fused with about 1,000 cockroaches. Normally, a single person can't fuse with multiple insects, but when jungle juice is used on a group of individuals, there's a slim chance of successful fusion. Shijun had only tapped into part of her power before, but during her individual assignment, Professor Sure helped her fully harness it. The vitality of 1,000 cockroaches, even an atomic bomb, couldn't kill her. Though this power felt unsettling, it was their only hope now. Realizing she was entangled with a uniquely powered foe, and dragging it out was pointless, the mantis contacted her teacher. Then she approached the shutter door, swinging both arms, smashing the door open. The mantis escaped. To prevent her from attacking others, Shochan hurriedly gave chase. As Shijun prepared to take the wounded to the infirmary, she realized Che Huixin and the others, meant to provide backup, still hadn't arrived. At the same time, Che Huixin and Dao Hua were in the school building, blocked by a yellow-haired girl. She snapped a burly man in half, hoisting him over her shoulder. Groaning in pain, Dao Hua yelled at her to put him down, or he'd die. The yellow-haired girl agreed readily, but the next second, she snapped him again, finishing him off, then casually tossed him. He crashed heavily to the ground. I put him down. Is that okay? This blatant hostility ignited Dao. She swung her fist and leaped forward to give her a taste of a heavy blow. But the next moment, the yellow-haired girl easily caught Dao Hua's punch. I heard your specialty is immense strength. I'm not bad myself. Let's have a contest. This enemy's ability could detonate anything she touched. Since she always wore a mask and had terrifying explosive powers, the assistant's toxins were useless against her, leaving him battered. Without using abilities, could he really not win? The man looked at the assistant. Since you can't move, I'll start my mission. He walked toward Professor Chi, raising his hand to take her out. At the critical moment, the assistant rushed to shield Professor Chi, taking the blow with his body. Then he realized the invader's goal at the school was to eliminate Professor Chi, and it must be Shun Jiayan's doing. After all, only that woman was obsessed with killing the professor. He charged at the man. But the man with explosive abilities raised a hand, and before the assistant got close, explosions erupted on his body. He sneered. Don't waste your effort. You can't do anything. Facing such a powerful invader, knowing his smoke was useless, he had no choice. He slowly reached into his pocket, pulling out a special cigarette. Professor Chi had forbidden its use, warning that using it again would strip him of his assistant role. But now there was no other way. The man didn't give him a chance. Raising his arm to activate his ability, 15 glowing spots appeared on the assistant's body, ice ants attached from contact, growing stronger over time, now powerful enough to blast off his limbs. But the smoking assistant ignored them, recalling his student days. Always with a cigarette, smoking due to his ability. Toxic smoke kept others away, making him unwelcome. Even his request for a classroom smoking area was denied. Only Professor Chi didn't shun him, guiding him to the right path. With this debt of gratitude, he'd protect Professor Chi to the death. The man clenched his fist, detonating all the bombs. The assistant's body glowed brightly, exploding like fireworks, burning endlessly. His glasses fell in the flames, cracked. At the same time, Xiao Kan, tracking the mantis, scanned the sky. A dazzling burst of fire shot upward. As the flames faded, the explosion was far off. The blasts on the assistant below hadn't stopped. But the man's face was calm. No one could survive such heat. Next, deal with Professor Chi? He turned. A chilling aura suddenly enveloped him. The assistant's cigarette had 50% nicotine content, putting the body in a hyperactive state. This puts tremendous strain on the body. If it weren't a crisis situation, Professor Sure would have forbidden him from using it. Although this move has severe side effects, it allows the assistant instructor to enter a new form of the tobacco swan stance, the Black Devil state. In this state, the assistant exudes a terrifying aura. With a swing of his clawed hand, deep gashes appeared on the enemy's arm. The situation was dangerous. The man activated his ability again, causing another explosion. It blasted the assistant instructor backward. The man could see he wasn't uninjured, but in the explosion, the assistant kept swinging his claws relentlessly, charging through flames and ignoring pain as he attacked. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed by, leaving several deep wounds on the man's face. His mask was torn and fell to the ground. You have to know, in this state, not even Professor Sure can beat him. It should end now. At that moment, the mantis suddenly leapt onto the assistant, plunging a blade deep into him. The assistant was wounded, coughing up a mouthful of blood. You really showed up at the perfect time, Manhwa. Then he viciously kicked him away, with more enemies approaching. At this point, the assistant had no strength left to move. I'll take care of the professor. You handle the kid. With that, the two of them walked. But the two lying on the ground weren't so easy to kill. At that moment, the assistant raised his head. Turns out, Shotan had chased after the mantis and arrived just in time. The man looked at the dragonfly across from him and realized it was the dragonfly the keeper wanted to recapture. Hearing the word keeper, Shotan got even angrier. That troublemaker again. At this moment, the assistant said, these guys are too dangerous. First years like you can't handle them. Seeing the burns on the assistant's body, was today's explosion caused by this guy? The man smugly told him, that's right, it was me. I implanted explosive seeds in those people. Wasn't it glorious? Flesh flying everywhere. Hearing that, Shochan quietly lowered his head, thinking of the girl who had called out to him for help. His expression darkened completely. The next moment, he charged at the man. The mantis, having experienced his speed before, quickly readied his stance to intercept, but Shochan zipped past him, leaping into the air. He clenched his fist and launched a shoulder strike toward the. But the man didn't react at all. As soon as they made contact, Shochan was blasted far away, but he landed steadily, completely unharmed. The man was confused. His arm should have blown up, right? Looking closely, Shochan's arm was numb with pain. It was the glove that had protected him. Thinking back, the man had said, you touched it. So that means, touching his arm causes the explosion. Shochan's strength lies in his speed. As long as he avoids the man's arms, he should be able to win. Suddenly, someone grabbed his hand. The assistant stepped up and pulled Shochan behind him. With a serious face, leave this to me. Take Professor Sure and run. Even though I'm injured, I can still fight. I'm not sending you away because you're weak. It's because if you lose control again, look around. This is a residential area. If that happens, no one here will survive. This is real combat. This isn't just your power control training. It concerns the lives of everyone around you. Hearing that, Shou-chan gritted his teeth, grabbed Professor Chi, and flew off at full speed. The enemy could only stand there watching. The assistant thought back to Shun Jian's berserk incident. He couldn't let that happen again. Even though Professor Chi told him to trust Shou-chan, there was still no guarantee he was safe. The man looked at the assistant, confused. Where do you get the confidence to fight 2-on-1? The mantis warned him to stop talking nonsense. Just finish him off, before the reinforcements arrive. But the man disagreed. There are still many explosive units here. If we detonate them all, the support troops won't have time to help here, like this. But in the distance, everything was still quiet. No explosions as expected. He activated his power again. What's going on? But the assistant just smiled. During the fight, just now, he had kept his phone on speaker. The guards had heard everything. And so, Professor Ma's guards, spread across the area, took action, disarming the bombs on the Black Salt Island units. Don't underestimate us. You won't be able to kill anyone again. But the enemy didn't panic. He only lamented that their pawns were gone. Our real target is Professor Chi, and right now he's nothing more than a badly wounded insect. So, no big deal. The two of them charged at the assistant again. At that critical moment, Shokin returned and unleashed his stance. The place where he stepped, cracked from the recoil. His compound eyes locked onto the man from all directions. With his hunter rifle stance activated, Shokin struck him at lightning speed, landing and landed steadily beside the assistant. Here. These are cigarettes I took from the office. If I lose control again, use them to knock me out. Now do you trust me? That scene reminded him of smoking in Professor Chi's office. It was a similar situation, even though the cigarette was harmless. Professor Chi still chose to believe in him. Now Shokin was like his past self, in need of trust. Thinking of that, the assistant smiled and lit a cigarette. These guys are tough. Don't die out there. Can't believe I sent a freshman into a fight. This assistant might be getting fired. Right now, the two girls were comparing raw strength again. They had already exchanged several rounds. The yellow-haired girl's armor caused Daohua serious trouble. All of his attacks were blocked by her armor and did no damage. Not only were their strengths similar, even if the yellow-haired girl got hit, her armor absorbed it all. But Daohua only needed to get hit once to get hurt. Realizing things weren't looking good, Huixin rushed to assist. She aimed at the yellow-haired girl and struck with her scythe-like weapon. But there wasn't even a wound. Her armor was tougher than steel. Her power came from the armor technique, with hardened exoskeleton on her shoulders. In combat, it protected her and could even rebound attacks. Such a powerful ability must have come from extensive warrior training. Even Daohua had to get serious now. Her ability surged to her arm. She raised her fist, channeling 50% of her king crab ability into one blow, and struck the yellow-haired girl. That blow really punched a hole through the armor. But just as Daohua was about to rejoice, the yellow-haired girl revealed a sinister smile. In the next moment, she activated a stance from her armor technique. A torrent of blood sprayed out from the crack, splattering all over Daohua. The blood, filled with acidic chemicals, got into Daohua's eyes. Though the acid wasn't strong and didn't cause serious damage, it was enough to temporarily blind her. Don't call me despicable. Blinding an enemy in the wild is a commonly used tactic. This may only cause temporary blindness, but from now on, you're my punching bag. A storm of blows rained down on Daohua. She kept striking while blocking at the same time. You're such a disappointment. I grew up in an orphanage too. A place full of scum who'd do anything for money. As my old friend, Li Junhong really is pitiful. In a world where only the strong survive, she was abandoned by the organization just to protect you. And you, coward that you are, nearly killed the very Li Junhong who kept protecting you. One sentence shattered Daohua's mental defenses. As his guard dropped, Blondie landed an uppercut that sent him flying. You always pretend to be strong, but at crucial moments, you keep dragging your teammates down. You're just a worthless piece of trash. Once again, he reached toward the disheartened Daohua, but Huixing stepped in with a kick to stop him. When it comes to stuff like this, he's got plenty of experience. Daohua, it's just a small injury, don't make a big deal of it. Civilians aside, it's nothing. So what if you drag down your teammates? Teammates are supposed to carry each other. Right? Wenya. Daohua stared at him, unmoving, then broke into a grin. Not bad, you idiot. He got back on his feet and charged at Blondie again. Though his attack was dodged, its direction was perfectly accurate. This time, he didn't use his eyes. He relied on vibration sensing to determine position. Immediately after, another uppercut came flying. Blondie dodged again, but Daohua's tail slipped into a gap in the armor unnoticed. Blondie thought, Emperor Scorpions are so it should be fine. But the next second, his expression changed drastically. A large amount of blood splattered on the ground. What's going on? Why is the venom so strong? It's true. Emperor Scorpions are physically powerful, as well. They don't need venomous stingers, so they're weak in toxicity. However, Daohua had been poisoned twice before. Professor Shi's assignment was to inject others' toxins into himself and overcome the poisoning response. By mixing various toxins, his ability eventually evolved, granting him deadly venom. Through absorbing others' toxins in large amounts, Daohua not only gained strong resistance, but his Emperor Scorpion ability evolved into one with deadly venom. While he was caught off guard, Daohua rushed in with a dragon's tail, striking Blondie hard. The intense movement caused the venom in his body to spread. His face twisted in pain. Daohua grabbed his collar and pulled him in. Feeling desperate? This isn't over yet. Then came another strike, a 30% strength iron glove punch. It hit his face, sending Blondie flying. Huaxin took the chance to charge from behind, wielding a long-handled scythe. If that hit and took his head, he'd be done for. In desperation, Blondie sprayed his blood again, trying to blind Huaxin. And Huaxin couldn't dodge in time. At the critical moment, a hand pulled Huaxin aside. It was Daohua who blocked the attack. Blondie was stunned. What? He actually blocked it for him? Though Daohua was temporarily blinded, in reality, he could still see clearly. Through vibration sensing, he didn't need to open his eyes. Immediately after, he charged at Blondie again at high speed. Their clash created a massive shockwave. Dust scattered everywhere, making it hard for Huaxin to open his eyes. But something unexpected happened. The poisoned Blondie was still standing, while Daohua, he actually kneeled on the ground. Next up, it wasn't hunting, but a real battle. Then he launched a frenzied attack on Daohua again. His entire speed rose to a whole new level. Originally, in Yellowhaired's armored form, his ability speed was very slow, but in order to survive in that former hell, he devoured the weak in madness, purifying himself. That's how he overcame his weakness. Then with a flash of blue light, the blonde girl suddenly had armor covering her entire body. You things trained in classrooms. How can you possibly compare to us who survived a deadly trial? So it turns out, he was holding back from the beginning. The camera cuts to Shiokan's side. At this moment, the mantis was giving Shiokan some special attention. The surrounding space was already filled with dense flashes of blades. Shiokan could only keep dodging. The assistant by the sea shouted to use smoke to stun them. The assistant nearby took a hard puff on his cigarette, then flicked off a chunk of it. Immediately, a hypnotic toxic smoke formed a circle and surrounded the mantis. The mantis shot a cold glance, then spun his entire body like a giant fan, blowing away all the toxic smoke. This outrageous move left Shiokan stunned. He couldn't believe that was even possible, and at that very moment, a weakness appeared, and the man seized it. In the next second, a violent explosion erupted between them. Then more explosions rang out around Shiokan. The resulting shockwaves stopped him from moving at high speed again. The control of this move was spot on, giving the mantis an opening. He slashed right in, but it was just a scare. Only his clothes were cut, but then the mantis straddled him, striking ruthlessly, aiming directly for his neck. Thankfully, Shiokan was wearing gloves, so he could use his hands to block the blade. Turns out, the orders they received said it didn't matter whether Shiokan lived or died. It seems, they really meant business. At this moment, the assistant was also held back by the man. The after effects of that previous cigarette were too strong. His body was starting to fail him. Now the only way to turn the tide was for Shiokan to go berserk and take on both at once. Otherwise, both they and Professor Chi would be heading straight to their deaths. If he started hurting civilians, the assistant could still use smoke to knock him out. No time to hesitate. Shiokan recalled the dragonfly that devoured him in his consciousness. He thought, I'm coming for you again. In the next moment, his consciousness plunged into darkness, and it turned out to be completely empty. Just as he was confused, the assistant woke him up. The blade had already slashed his neck. The berserk mode failed. Is this the end? At the critical moment, another massive explosion erupted. A familiar voice rang out. If going berserk were so easy to control, we wouldn't have needed all that training. Don't throw your lives away recklessly. You're my prized student. Professor Chi finally woke up. The moment he appeared, he unleashed his ability, triggering a fierce explosion that ignited a sea of flames between the two sides. Seeing Professor Chi stand, they breathed a sigh of relief. You've done your best. Rest now. Leave this to me. Then Professor Chi turned around, his entire being radiating a terrifying aura. He spoke slowly. Which one should I burn first? The mantis, confident in her reach, charged forward immediately. Amid Shio-chan's gasp, she vanished, spinning at high speed toward Professor Chi, aiming her blade to decapitate him. But Professor Chi merely glanced at her, catching her arm. Then he slammed the mantis's head into the ground, picked her up again, and like hurling a missile, threw her into a distant wall. The man broke out in a sweat. He'd taken down Manhwa barehanded, but the next second, he was grabbed too. His arm was twisted and snapped. The man winced in pain, quickly triggering a bomb to blast them apart. Landing, he clutched his arm, yet a smile spread across his face. In that brief moment of contact, he had planted military-grade bombs all over Professor Chi's body. Clenching his fist, he prepared to detonate them and end the fight. Sure enough, glowing points protruded from Professor Chi's body, but his expression remained calm. You lot aren't leaving here alive today. You've crossed a line you shouldn't have, compared to the immediate danger. Professor Chi's mind was on his injured students. Professor Chi's momentum erupted, a blaze of furious flames soaring skyward. Then, a heat wave surged in Professor Chi's eyes. He slowly threw a punch. Flames and light engulfed the man. No one around could keep their eyes open under this move. As the blinding light faded, only a sea of fire remained before Professor Chi. One strike had brought the man down. Someone using bombs can't even withstand this heat? Xiao-chan's jaw dropped in awe, truly worthy of a professor. But Professor Chi, facing away, began coughing, clutching his hand. A wisp of black smoke rose from it. The assistant instructor approached. Professor Chi had barely regained consciousness. Unleashing his ability like that had pushed him to his limit. Ever since the professor faced a battle 5 years ago, the side effects of his ability had left his health in decline. With each use of his ability, his condition worsened further. Recalling earlier, the senior sister had said something similar. These past few months, the professor had been overusing his ability. He couldn't keep going like this. As he spoke, the assistant instructor collapsed. Professor Chi turned and saw this, guessing he'd used that bottle of smoke. But this time, he didn't say anything. Activating his ability again. I'm enough on my own. I can't drag others down. Then he charged at the mantis, but was knocked aside midway. Unbelievably, the man was still conscious. Kicking the professor away, the mantis circled behind, slicing the professor twice. Facing this ferocious onslaught, the professor punched the ground. The explosive impact bought a moment to breathe. But the mantis gave no chance, rushing in, stabbing the professor's hand. This time his blade carried the man's venom. A loud explosion erupted between them. Shiokan rushed to help, but the man detonated bombs. In the ceiling, steel and concrete crashed down, pinning Shiokan. Just watch quietly. The mantis snapped back, saying his arm had gone numb. But to them, an arm for his life was a bargain, as Shiokan struggled. Shiokan, my friend, this next part is a special training course for you. I'll show you the essence of aura. Watch closely. At that moment, a girl ran frantically, finally reaching the building. Shijin looked at the access card. It worked. 30 minutes earlier. In the safe zone, Shijin surveyed the wounded. All residents and injured were safe. She set off to help Shiokan and the others. A guard suddenly called out, I need to ask you something. Take this. It's the dean's key. The dean's not at school. She loves nature. So she lives in the mountains. She doesn't use a phone. So she probably doesn't know what's happening. I know, asking a freshman is a bit much, but we have no one else available. Please find the dean for us. The dean is the school's most important person to protect. Scene shift. Professor Chi slowly stood, clenching her fist. Then, her fist relaxed. A sharp pain shot through her left hand. Her body arched in agony. She growled low. Shiokan watched, worried, pinned under rubble, with rebar piercing his hand. He was powerless. The man saw it. Professor Chi was at her limit, still acting tough for her students. This was her ability's side effect, caused by rejecting her power, our strength. The greatest influence on our abilities is our mind. If you mentally reject your power, it fights your body, causing harm, like wishing you're normal, not a monster. Such desires create side effects. And deep down, Professor Chi feels the same. She was naive before. Truly, she was foolish in the past. He firmly believed that supernatural powers were dangerous and had to be eradicated. It was with that mindset that he became a professor. Back then, everyone had just gained their abilities, and research on them was still lacking. Naturally, they didn't know how such thoughts could cause side effects. That's why Professor Sure asked students to reduce their use of abilities. Besides being a safety concern, another reason was to help students avoid the pain of turning into monsters. But rejecting their monstrous side and desperately wanting to be normal again caused severe side effects. It's an ironic truth, isn't it? It shows that we truly are monsters. Your way of raising flowers in a greenhouse simply doesn't work for people like us. What matters most is the external environment. If a person is in a brutal environment that forces them to abandon humanity, then they're bound to abandon weakness. Our goal isn't to wipe you all out. It's to make you live together in the new environment created by the Keeper. To achieve that goal, top-tier forces like you must die. The villains want to create a world of survival of the fittest. Professor Sure's high-level power is an obstacle, so he must die. Only then can they bring all powered beings into their new environment and let them grow freely, without constraints. It's true, Professor Sure himself admitted he was too soft in the past. Shen Jian's breakdown might have been a reaction to him, forbidding students from using their powers, even though he tried his best to stop Shen Jian's rampage. His lack of understanding of powers caused serious side effects, and his own cowardice cost students their lives. The environment created by his cowardice eliminated Shen Jian. At least, that's what he used to think. But now, Professor Sure's whole body burst into a terrifying blaze. The heat wave and pressure instantly pushed the two enemies back. I found proof. that the environment doesn't decide everything. In the same environment, different people yield different results. I found not one, but two such examples. One is Pu Shizhen. He's probably the unluckiest person I know, in both life and family matters. And yet, he remains upright and capable. Even so, he stays morally upright and talented. The other is Zhang Xiuchan. He faced the same situation as Shun Jian. Same side effects, rejected and shunned by those around him. But even when he raged out, he never harmed his teammates. My students are not weak. They've been training and growing their strength constantly, and the school is the place that protects them. But the man remained unfazed. You're about to die and still talking tough? Then let me show you the true power born from a cruel environment. The power of evolutionary origin. His body began to transform. Venomous spikes sprouted from his arms, and armor started forming, covering half his body. Flames even burst from the gaps in his armor. Those flames gave him astonishing jet speed as he charged at Professor Shi. Facing the enemy's confident blow, Professor Shi grinned, eyes wide open. Watch closely. This is what real stance-based ability looks like. This is the final, extracurricular lesson. My student. The next second, a stance-based ultimate ability erupted. This move is called nuclear explosion. A single punch landed, let alone those nearby. As long as their eyes still worked, everyone in the school city saw a dazzling pillar of fire shooting skyward. How powerful can abilities born from insect fusion become? What is the true strength of momentum abilities? The next second, momentum erupted. Professor Chi unleashed a punch called nuclear explosion, smashing it into the ground. A terrifying pillar of light burst from this punch, surging into the sky in an instant. The pillar, carrying searing heat and waves of energy, kept rising. This force, finally, forming a mushroom cloud, like a nuclear blast above the academy. Everyone in the academy witnessed this horrifying strike. When it ended, the ground was left with a vast sea of fire. But Professor Chi's face was grim. You got lucky. If your ally hadn't saved you, you'd be a pile of ash by now. Straight ahead, the mantis girl was still standing in the sea of fire, but her entire body had undergone drastic changes. Not a single part unscathed. Xiuchan, pinned to the ground, wasn't restrained. She stared ahead in shock. Before, she and the assistant instructor had fought desperately to barely hold off the enemy. Yet Professor Chi, with one move, had crushed them. The mantis girl, kicked away by her ally, had only been grazed by the blast, yet her body was covered in wounds. Is this the essence of momentum abilities? If Professor Chi could use his powers freely, without backlash, no one could stand against him, right? Professor Chi raised his hand again. Surrender, or burn to death. At that moment, the mantis girl's eyes held no trace of fighting spirit. She contacted her teacher through her earpiece. The enemy's too strong. What should I do? But the man in the overcoat replied coldly, don't forget what happens if you fail. Hearing this, the mantis girl's eyes slowly widened, recalling past events. Then, clutching her head, she muttered repeatedly, I don't want to become human again. When she looked up, her gaze had completely changed. Professor Chi, seeing her, still defiant, raised his fist again to finish her off. This punch should have been unstoppable for the gravely injured, but strangely, she blocked it. In this desperate situation, the mantis girl broke through some barrier, unleashing a power called Origin of Species. Her wounds fully healed, and she regained her peak combat strength to recover from such severe injuries. To her prime, this ability was practically identical to Shizhen's. The Origin of Species power in her body could borrow and integrate with her essence. Abilities mimicking insect powers, cockroach and mantis, are similar. She borrowed it. The villain practically became the protagonist. How absurd. And the next moment, fully restored, mantis girl leaped into the air, attacking. But Professor Chi, due to ability backlash, was already exhausted. On the other side, at the school's triage zone, Professor Lu saw a towering burst of flames, and knew Professor Chi was in trouble. Ignoring colleagues' protests, he rushed to the site of the ability outbreak. Such a fierce explosion must be Professor Chi acting tough again. With his healing ability, he might still make it in time, but suddenly someone appeared behind him. A man grinned. Finally found you. The next moment, unskilled in combat, Professor Lu was struck by his blade's flash. Blood sprayed. Then, his body weakly slumped to the ground. Before he hit the ground, the man snatched his ID badge. He was tasked by the teacher to take it. With this, he could enter any facility freely. Might as well kill and eat him. At that moment, Professor Lu was still struggling. With all his strength, he looked up to ask the man's purpose, but the man wouldn't say, telling him to worry about himself, saying, in a few minutes, he'd be dead. Sure enough, Professor Lu, bleeding out, collapsed again. His eyes slowly losing color. His mind still on Professor Chi's condition. In extreme conditions, Mantis Girl broke her limits, unleashing the The power of species origin. She borrowed cockroach abilities, instantly restoring to peak condition. Fully healed, she had no intention of giving Professor Chi any chance after such a big move. Professor Chi suffered ability backlash, her condition now critical. Mantis Girl with her restored physical edge, unleashed her speed recklessly. Crimson blade flashes enveloped the area. In this situation, Professor Chi could only defend passively, retreating step by step, her body sliced with wounds, blood splattered. To Professor Chi, she was still full of flaws. And so, amid the clash of blades and blood, Professor Chi seized an opening. Instinctively, she tried to counterattack with her ability, but something fell off. An intense, unfamiliar pain radiated from her left hand. It was ability backlash again. No matter how hard she tried, her power wouldn't respond at all. That brief moment, when she caught her enemy's opening, turned into a fatal opening for Professor Sure, as Shotan screamed. The mantis dashed forward and severed Professor Sure's left arm, then twisted her body to follow up, aiming to finish him off. Although Professor Sure could read all her moves, his physical condition was too poor to react in time. So many unfortunate coincidences. This story truly seemed full of malice. On the brink of death, the professor thought of Shun Jiayan. If he died now, Shun Jiayan would probably be pleased, and in the next moment, the mantis girl didn't hesitate at all, and stabbed him straight through. Mission complete. With a flick of her blade, she flung Professor Sure far away, his fate unknown. Finally, she turned to leave. But someone beside her spoke up. You're just going to leave? A fierce green light shot skyward. With all his teammates dead, Shochan finally remembered. He was still alive. As Shochan's ability erupted, the man who had taken down Professor Liu and stolen his ID badge was wandering around the school grounds, seemingly searching for something. Professor Liu's daily work was all conducted in the lab, and with his badge, nearly every door could be opened. Inside the laboratory, one glass door after another, all looked nearly the same, and it drove the man crazy. He already hated doing this kind of task. And now there were so many doors. Who knows how long it'd take? After complaining, he opened another door. This time, what was inside seemed different. Robotic arms and large, unfamiliar machines. Unlike the small gadgets from before, this room was likely where high-end equipment was stored. As he looked around, he stepped on a red laser line. An alarm blared instantly. The next moment, a drone with a machine gun flew up behind him. Then, the drone lit up, aimed the gun, and opened fire. But things like this are no match for someone with powers. He leapt into the air and kicked, destroying the drone instantly. But right after that, the entire lab was forced into a blackout. The power breakers along the wall sparked loudly. It went pitch black, completely dark. He couldn't see where to go next at all. He sighed. Things were getting more annoying. But since a machine guard had shown up, he figured that meant he was probably in the right place. After wandering in the darkness for a while, he saw something glowing on a desk, a lit-up tablet computer. He picked it up and took a closer look. It showed Zhang Xiuqin's gene test result for his ability. Through jungle juice, he obtained the dragonfly ability. It was different from that of ordinary dragonflies. The dragonfly that gave him this power was the largest known species in Country K. Its massive body often makes first-time viewers mistake it for a drone. Among all flying insects in the ecosystem, it sits at the very top. It is known as the king of dragonflies, a predator even to giant sky apes. When the mantis girl returned to her peak condition, Xiuqin had already seen through it. With his compound eyes that Professor Chi was losing ground, he remembered what the assistant had said. Ever since Professor Chi had the fierce battle against the Shin family's yin 5 years ago, his left arm had suffered side effects. It had never fully recovered, and got worse with each use of his ability. Thinking of that, Xiuqin finally began to panic and wanted to help, but his arm had been pierced through by steel rebar, firmly pinning him in place. Before he could act, Professor Chi was struck through the body by the mantis girl's handblade. The unbelievable sight filled Xiuqin's heart with boundless regret. He thought it was all his fault. Memories flooded his mind, unrelenting and sharp. His senior had also warned him to tell Professor Chi to hold back and not use his ability again. But during their first fight against the Mantis Man, when Xiuqin was in danger, it was Professor Chi who used his power to save him. In the second battle against the breeder, Xiuqin's life was once again hanging by a thread, and Professor Chi used his power to save him again. Later on, when Xiuqin almost went berserk and was nearly locked up by the school, it was Professor Chi who used his power to fight him and proved he wasn't a threat. That was how he convinced the school. Xiuqin knew it was all to save him. Professor Chi had pushed his powers time and again, and his body had reached its limit because it was Xiuqin who had dragged Professor Chi into the abyss. With that thought, cracks began to form in Xiuqin's goggles. Then a fierce burst of green light exploded in place. The mantis girl turned her head in surprise, and her pupils shrank in shock, because Xiuqin was charging at her at an incredible speed. Shiokan ripped off his cracked goggles, and twin streaks of green lightning shot from his eyes, full of endless regret. He entered berserk mode once again. In this state, there was no such thing as honorable combat. He opened his mouth and bit at the mantis girl. She screamed in pain and kicked him away, shocked and rattled. She couldn't believe he tried to eat her, and then she saw part of her hand had been bitten off. The next moment, Shiokan came charging again, covered in electric light. In a wild frenzy, he fiercely assaulted the mantis girl. In a flash, the two exchanged multiple blows in midair. Shiokan, with overwhelming speed and power, completely overwhelmed her. Then, with a heavy kick, a powerful shockwave spread from their point of contact. The mantis girl was kicked into a distant building. She realized she was no match for him now. If she kept fighting, she might die. But she also realized that Shiokan's current state was just like those who had undergone feeding training in breeding farms. He had completely lost his sanity and become a beast. He couldn't tell friend from foe. He bit at anyone in sight. In that case, things got simpler. The mantis girl charged into the crowd of students. He grabbed a girl to use as bait. If Shochan attacked the bait and exposed a flaw, she'd exploit it to take him down. But the next moment, Shochan didn't harm the girl. Instead, he slammed the mantis girl's head hard into the ground, gravely injured. The mantis girl was bewildered. How could he still stay rational? His instincts were clearly like those of a feeding-trained subject, unlike you monsters. He's now in a hunter's stance, controlling his berserk ability, while retaining both rationality and strength. The ability within this man had gone berserk. He hadn't lost his mind. He was now in a hunter's stance, blending rationality and power. Shochan, crackling with electric light, slowly landed. The mantis girl still couldn't believe the scene before her. This man's earlier actions were as ferocious as a feeding-trained subject's. Yet he retained his rationality. He stepped right up to the mantis girl. This strike left her no chance to resist. She was sent flying. Watching his foe soar away, Shochan gave her no time to recover. Crashing through a wall, he instantly caught up to the mantis girl and slammed her against another wall. At this point, the mantis girl, entirely on the defensive, couldn't take it anymore. If she didn't find a way to fight back, she was done for. So the mantis girl raised her hand, her blade flashing swiftly through the air. But such an attack posed no threat in Shochan's eyes. After a burst of lightning, she couldn't resist. Such an attack was meaningless to Shochan. He flashed behind her, landing another punch. Lightning from his ability filled the entire room. The mantis girl flew like a ball, and as the dust settled, she was left trembling in pain on the spot. But she hadn't given up. She hurled 2 chunks of rubble at nearby ordinary students to buy herself breathing room. What was going on? He was like a different person. Both his strength and speed had leaped to new heights, evolving in the blink of an eye, just like us. Having been through it all, she knew what this meant. Instant evolution like this shouldn't exist in the world, unless the power's source came from the person themselves. The mantis girl staggered to her feet. Recalling her teacher's words, using origin of species to borrow the cockroach's power was formidable, but healing severe wounds with it would drain her stamina, potentially killing her. Of course, as long as she avoided moves like Professor Sher's nuclear, her stamina wouldn't run dry. But now, she was out of time. She had to end this quickly. Then she went berserk. Their battle shifted from indoors to the sky. At that moment, the mantis girl accelerated, stomping the ground to pieces, launching herself into the air. Even though Shochan flew high, she closed in on him with this move. The mantis girl's face twisted with ferocity. I've got you now. But as she moved to act, her arm was grabbed. No matter who comes, the sky is my domain. Shochan landed another heavy punch, sending her plummeting. She fell faster than she'd risen. And it wasn't over. Shochan unleashed his ability and pursued her. He became countless streaks of green light in the air, attacking relentlessly from all directions. The mantis girl's form blurred under the onslaught. Finally, Shiokan unleashed his hunting rifle aura. His body like a meteor, grabbing mantis girl, crashing toward the ground. Mantis girl, trapped in the light cave, had no resistance. Extreme speed and altitude built massive momentum, hitting the ground, causing a terrifying explosion. Seeing the devastation he caused, Shiokan paused silently in the air, then slowly landed beside Mantis Girl. Stop fighting. In your state, you'll die if you keep going. You're really going to die? How could a delicate girl end up like this? Shiokan, who caused it all, landed slowly. Give up. If you keep fighting, you'll die? But Mantis Girl shakily stood again. I'll never stop. If it were you, would you give up? Would you go back to that miserable past? If it's like that, I'd rather die. She struck Shiokan with a crimson point aura. A green flash followed. Mantis Girl was hit, blood splattering. I don't want to kill like you do. But if someone hurts those I care about, don't blame me for fighting back. With that, she raised her glowing green fist again, aiming at Mantis Girl on the ground. As she spoke, a massive energy burst erupted around Mantis Girl, knocking Shiokan 10 meters back. Then, a voice came from the school building. I didn't expect the school to have someone who can control a berserk ability. What a surprise. Shiokan looked up, seeing a masked man. The masked man helped Mantis Girl up. Nice to meet you. I'm their teacher. And the one who ordered the professor's death. This man was the mastermind behind it all. Shiokan's eyes blazed with rage. This damn guy. The next moment, a green flash streaked across the building. A powerful impact exploded where the masked man stood. Then, a voice came from the ground. Such incredible speed. Your ability is extraordinary. It was the masked man. He dodged the impact. Then, he gently placed Mantis Girl on the ground. Good work, Manhwa. You've completed your hunt. Leave the rest to me. He stood up. Though the breeder told me to hide my ability for now, as a teacher, I should clean up for my student. Then, a blade extended from his hand, glowing with flickering light. Do you people treat killing so lightly? The next moment, Shiokan vanished, reappearing before the masked man. His fist slammed into his face, sending him flying. Using his speed, Shiokan pinned the masked man, unleashing a flurry of strikes in midair. The masked man was hurled far away. But it wasn't over. Shiokan chased ahead, clenching both fists, delivering an unmatched blow. Green lightning sent the masked man crashing into the building. Walls collapsed along the way. The masked man hit the ground hard. Such immense power. No wonder Manhwa fell to him. The masked man remarked, this guy must die? The next moment, he turned into a golden flash and vanished. Shiokan sensed danger, instantly activating his giant ape fortress aura. But the scene ahead was completely empty. The masked man had vanished without a trace. Just as Shio-chan was puzzled, the masked man appeared behind him. Turns out the enemy could fly too. Before Shio-chan could react, the masked man's sword had already pierced his waist. Shio-chan spun around and punched the masked man, knocking him to the ground again, then clutched the wound with both hands. It hurt badly, but it was just a flesh wound. With this level of injury, he could still fight, so he launched another attack. That's when the masked man spoke. A place this dark, where not a speck of light reaches, couldn't be more perfect. He instantly vanished into the shadows. Shio-chan couldn't sense him at all. Just a moment ago he was flying around, now gone. While Shio-chan was still searching, like a ghost, he flickered in and out of the darkness. Shio-chan took several hits from his blade. The attacks were impossible to guard against. He had no way of dealing with it. His only option was to flee from the shadows. But just then, a searing pain surged through his body. The masked man had stabbed him from behind again. This strike pierced right through Shio-chan's body with frost. You know, after undergoing guard training, warriors can retain their reason too. But to survive, they have no choice but to accept that training. And in just a short time, they go from not daring to kill to killing freely. With that, he lifted Shio-chan high into the air and slammed him hard to the ground. He stepped on the helpless Shio-chan with his left foot, raised his long sword and said, "Rest in peace." The man was exhausted from the prolonged fight, lying flat on the ground, unable to move. The masked man stood on his back, sword raised, and muttered, "Rest in peace." Just as he was about to finish Shio-chan off, he heard a sword being drawn behind him. The masked man jumped back quickly, narrowly dodging the strike. Seeing Shio-chan lying motionless, Shijin rushed over. He gently touched Shio-chan's face, heartbroken. "Thank goodness you're okay." But Shio-chan grabbed Shijin's hand anxiously, telling him to get out of there fast. "That guy is extremely dangerous. You can't stay here. They've already hurt Professor Chi." Before he could finish, a voice came from the side. What did they do to Professor Chi-jun? Shio-chan thought another enemy had arrived, but it was someone Shijin had called for help. The white-haired elder was the headmaster of the school. Shio-chan saw the headmaster, hobbling toward the masked man, shouting, "It's dangerous over there." The headmaster stopped in his tracks, planted his sword into the ground, and muttered, "I'm so useless. Things are a mess here, and I was sleeping through it all. Truly, time spares no one." Then he turned around, looked at the masked man, and said, "Sir, your sword looks quite impressive." The headmaster slowly drew his own sword. "How about we have a duel?" As he gripped his sword, the dust on the ground began swirling with his rising aura. His target was the masked man above. Looking down at the headmaster, he recalled what the keeper had told him. Their primary target this time was eliminating one of the strongest forces, Professor Chi-jun. Now that his body was failing him, the warriors had a good chance. However, there were still a few other powers to watch for. First was Professor Chi's assistant, his tobacco swan ability. As long as they figured out how to counter the smoke, defeating him wouldn't be too hard. The second wave of power is the senior year fist squad. They formed the first team of that division, but they're currently not on campus. We probably won't run into them. Finally, we need to be cautious of the head principal. We have the least intel on him. Just as the masked man was thinking, the principal was already swinging his sword at him. A brilliant flash of sword light sliced through the air. Though it was fast, the masked man still had plenty of time to react. The breeder said, "Is the threat just some old guy swinging a sword around wildly? What a disappointment." Down below, the principal slowly sheathed his sword. "Seems I've grown. I was aiming to take off your head." In the next moment, the darkness behind the masked man was torn apart, revealing the bright night sky. It turned out to be an invisible sword aura that grazed his head. The principal spoke again. By the way, you're quite strong. He had actually been injured on the face. This round of probing made the masked man realize they couldn't decide the winner quickly. Looking at the principal below who had resumed a battle stance, he said, "How about we end this here? You caused such a big mess, and now you're saying we stop? Are you scared of an old man like me?" The masked man pointed at Shiotsai. "If we keep fighting, it'll only be bad for everyone. More will be lost." These words silenced the principal. "If you say nothing, I'll take it as agreement." He picked up the injured mantis girl and ordered all predators to retreat. Then he flapped his wings, preparing to leave. Shiotsai didn't want to let him go so easily. Holding his wound with one hand and pushing against the ground with the other, he was just about to give chase when the principal pressed his cane down on Shiotsai's hand. "Do you have a death wish? Even if you catch up, it'll only lead to more meaningless slaughter." But at this point, Shiotsai wouldn't listen. He struggled hard, trying to avenge Professor Sure. Yet the principal didn't let him act recklessly. He raised his cane and struck Shiotsai's neck, knocking him out. "You've done your best. Leave the rest to the adults." After speaking, the principal turned and left. This time, the losses were severe. On the other side, the yellow-haired girl also received the retreat order. Not having had enough fun, she looked annoyed. "My mission was to divert attention, and I only managed to lure a few people." She threw Daohua onto Huixin, intending to finish them both off before leaving. She lifted a piece of the ground step, aiming to crush them. Just then, Li Junhong arrived and shot a poison spike at her. Her arm got hit. She had to drop the stone. Seeing a new helper arrive, the yellow-haired girl felt unwilling but still left the scene. The school was bombed. After the attack, the school suffered heavy losses. 34 people died, 50 were injured, 15 facilities were destroyed, and the research labs were completely shut down. Most importantly, the place where the antidote was being produced was also destroyed. Those people even took away the last shred of hope. In the hospital hallway, nurses were doing their best to push Professor Chi toward the operating room. At that moment, Xiojin heard another nurse's voice. "Stop, you can't move yet." She looked in the direction of the voice and saw that Xiao-chan was bursting out of the hospital room, ignoring the nurses trying to stop her. She wanted to see Professor Chi with her own eyes. Seeing Professor Chi with an oxygen mask and in critical condition, Xiao-chan's eyes filled with tears. She was powerless to do anything but watch as he was rushed into emergency care. The doctors immediately began intense resuscitation efforts. Outside the room, Xiao-chan and Xiojin were overwhelmed with anxiety. After an unknown amount of time, the doors to the operating room opened. They rushed to ask about Professor Chi's condition. The doctor told them that Professor Chi had fallen into a coma, with severe internal injuries. The side effects of his ability had left his entire body in terrible shape. If Professor Lu could treat him in time with his ability, there might still be a glimmer of hope. However, Professor Lu was also attacked and hit with an unknown neurotoxin. Though his self-healing power managed to save his life, his nervous system was damaged and he too is undergoing treatment now. Professor Chi's life was temporarily saved, but the chances of him regaining consciousness are extremely slim. After the attack, insect combat classes were suspended, but everyone still came to the classroom, their emotions heavy and complicated. They all hoped that Professor Chi could return to the classroom one day. When Daohua learned about Professor Chi's condition, his temper flared and he exploded with rage. He wanted to go take revenge on those people. Everyone was deeply saddened by the news. Would they never see Professor Chi again? Others began discussing it as well. They heard that the facility producing the antidote had been completely smashed. Most importantly, all the data related to antidote production was burned. Even the backup hard drives were missing. That was their only hope of becoming ordinary humans again. The man before them had fallen into a coma, with severe internal injuries. The side effects of his ability had left his body in a terrible state. At that moment, Shijin stood in front of Professor Chi's room. He looked at the sign, but didn't go in. Seeing this, he couldn't help but recall the days when he was homeless and all alone. It was Professor Chi who gave him hope and brought him to the school. Just then, a senior walked over and said, "What a pity. Your classmates are all in the classroom. Aren't you going?" "I just visited Professor Lu. The ability he was struck with still needs further investigation. By the way, where's your warm boy? Didn't he come? I thought you two came together. That's why I spoke to you." Shijin instantly grew nervous. "Warm boy? It's not like that. I know you're all worried about Professor Chi, but you should start getting ready too." Shijin looked completely confused. "What's going on?" The senior grinned proudly. "It's okay if you don't know now. You'll understand soon. At the same time, why is everyone here today? Classes are still suspended, you know. The one who just entered is the teaching assistant." Seeing him, everyone quickly showed concern. The assistant said he was fine, but the doctor told him to quit smoking for now. The next moment, the assistant looked up at the students and said, "Since everyone is here, I have a few announcements. First, insect combat training will resume soon. Since Professor Chi is currently unable to teach, the school has invited a guest lecturer. Details are not yet clear. Second, one more student will be joining the class. On the day the predators from the pet shop attacked, all systems on campus shut down. After the power outage, every electrically locked containment door opened. It was Lee Junhung who subdued all the escapees and locked them back up. His actions were highly praised by the principal, and he's been granted freedom and equal status with the residents. He is now officially a student at this school. After class, while it's raining, Shiotsai came to the rooftop, blaming himself. Too much had happened at once. Even the professor had been replaced. Everyone was scattered, and he wasn't strong enough to protect the people he cared about. Just then, Lee Junhung arrived too, expressing his understanding. Those people will only become more rampant, and more people will get hurt. I have a proposal. While I was imprisoned, I learned about a secret base of the pet shop. I plan to raid it. If you join me, we'll be able to give the breeders a solid blow. Are you in? This man actually knew of other secret bases of the pet shop. Turns out, during the power outage caused by the predator attack, the escapees were trying to return to their breeders. But Lee Junhung stopped them and locked them back up. Besides, Lee Junhung was no longer under the breeders' control, so there was no reason to help them. They kept shouting to open the door, but Lee Junhung ignored them and walked away. No guards were in sight. The next moment, a voice came, "The predators are here." Lee Junhung immediately readied himself for battle. "So, you're Lee Junhung. I've been itching to fight you." However, Red Dragonfly was currently in a difficult position. The school was under attack by predators, special individuals personally raised by the specifically bred for assassination and large-scale terror attacks. Hearing this, Lee Junhung thought to himself, Daohua is in danger. I must go help him immediately. Red Dragonfly saw Lee Junhung about to leave. Wait, it's in S-Town. The breeder's home is in that area, S-Town. Also, Red Dragonfly was never one of the breeder's subordinates and was never harvested. Back then, she was just a fight-loving, wandering insect person. Later on, Red Dragonfly met Shin Jiayan and chose to serve under her. Shin Jiayan was the first human to ever defeat Red Dragonfly. Since she admired strong women, she decided to follow her. Lee Junhung stepped forward, grabbed Red Dragonfly's collar, and held a poisoned spike to her neck. I don't care whose subordinate you are. Why did you tell me about... Red Dragonfly gritted her teeth and said, because I can't stand her. I don't care about changing the world or whatever. She's living comfortably. I don't care which side wins. But the breeder always acts like she's some kind of boss. It's really annoying. She used us and then discarded us. Even when we were locked up, she never came to rescue us. So don't blame me for turning on her. Red Dragonfly didn't say any of this during the interrogation because there's a spy among the faculty. At that moment, Xiao-chan suspected Red Dragonfly of setting a trap. At first, Lee Junhung also thought it was a trap, but when she mentioned a faculty spy, it started to make sense. The predators came when the senior students were away, and they even knew where Professor Chi was located. That convinced them. It's possible the spy has already taken control of the whole school. If he finds out, our entire plan could go down the drain. That's why our plan must not be known by the staff. That's how we'll deal a heavy blow to the breeder. What do you plan to do? Will you join us? Xiao-chan was still filled with doubt. If everything Red Dragonfly said was true, then maybe this was a real opportunity. But could they trust someone who once tried to kill them? I'll join. Hearing the voice, Xiao-chan and the others turned to see it was Daohua and Huixin. We can't just sit here and wait for death. We had a feeling you two were up to something. So we followed. And sure enough, you're planning something big. Lee Junhung asked Daohua, do you trust me? To be honest, I'm still half skeptical. I'm still mad about how you lied to me, but I've decided to trust you one more time. After all, we're friends, right? At that moment, Lee Junhung was deeply moved and tightly grasped Daohua's hand. Huixin, meanwhile, felt too ashamed to face Professor Chi. After all that training, she was still useless, just getting beaten over and over. So this time, there was no other option. They had to fight back. Xiao-chan once again recalled what Professor Chi had said back then. My students are not cowards. Alright then, just for that sentence, we'll show them who Professor Chi's students really are. Turns out, everything they'd been saying had been on speakerphone via Daohua's phone. It was connected to Shijin's phone, so now you're part of this too. No backing out. At this moment, the group was planning a major operation to head to the pet shop's secret base. Due to the recent attack, students were not allowed to leave campus. Leaving without permission would definitely arouse suspicion from school spies. So Huixin rallied a few students who could solve this problem. The ones who came were none other than Songshuan and his crew. In the next moment, Daohua immediately grabbed Huixin by the collar to give her a beating. Of all people to choose, you went with Lute Songshuan, but the other classmates gradually... They couldn't get the antidote, and even implicated Professor Chi. Now everyone was furious. So what was the solution? How could they leave without alerting the faculty spies? At that moment, Lute Songshuan spoke up. I heard the destination is Town S. I've got the perfect plan. All we need is one thing. Shinya, bring the swimsuits over. As soon everyone looked stunned. Was this really going to work? Plan A was to use Ruinji's liquefaction ability to dig an underground tunnel and sneak out. They assumed only the campus gate was heavily guarded, so the plan seemed foolproof. but they didn't expect the outer perimeter to be so tightly secured. Plan A had already failed. They were being chased by the Wasp Squad. The Wasp Squad pulled out weapons and shot a hallucinogen into the back of one, causing them to swell up immediately. Clearly, Plan A was no longer viable. As expected, they had to go with the backup plan. Then Shiokan yelled for everyone to stop. They'd been exposed. Whether caught or fleeing, punishment was inevitable. In the end, they had to go with Sangshuan's idea. Plan B was launched. The scene shifted. The Wasp Squad had brought Shiokan and the others to Professor Ma's office. They were accused of orchestrating the unauthorized outing. Why did you do it? We were just going for a team-building retreat. Shijin's answer left Professor Ma speechless. Yes, disguising the trip as a team-building event was Sangshuan's plan. Even if they were caught, no one would suspect they were headed to the pet shop's hideout. Shijin continued explaining. The recent attacks had left everyone unsettled. They just wanted to go team-building to reset their minds. With classes suspended, they had free time. They figured the school wouldn't allow it. So they acted in secret. Professor Ma said sternly, that's still unacceptable. The situation is too urgent, unprecedented even. Under current conditions, no one would approve a team-building trip. Just then, the principal walked in. I approve it. With the authority of the principal, he allowed students to leave for team building. Professor Ma immediately stood up from his desk. But principal, he was interrupted mid-sentence. Team building is a right students should enjoy. After what happened to Professor Chi, many students are anxious. At times like this, the school should care for students' mental health. Just send a few security escorts, and it'll be fine. Hearing that, Professor Ma had no choice but to approve. The school would decide the location and lodging. Shiokan and the others immediately thanked Professor Ma. After the principal left, Shiokan chased after him and called out. He bowed again to thank him. The principal said, Chi Jun is the professor I trust most, and you are Chi Jun's beloved student. Naturally, I trust you too. If you don't have fun while you're young, then when will you? Enjoy your team-building trip. Back to Professor Ma. At this point, there was no other option. They must give the students full protection. Assistant 1. The next day, the students were ready to board the bus for the trip. They had been worried about how to explain things after getting caught, but the school approved it in the end. The unauthorized outing was swept under the rug, but there was still a problem. The school's designated lodging was far from Town S, and they had people watching them. Now they had to figure out how to evade surveillance and still get to Town S. If discovered, it would be reported back to the school, and inevitably leaked to the internal spies. If the breathing plan was discovered by the breeder, it would be all over. Before the sentence was finished, a terrifying figure suddenly lunged in front of Shiokan. Shiokan's eyes rolled back on the spot, and he collapsed unconscious. Sorry. Didn't mean to scare you. This is Assistant Wen Shuriying, assigned by the professor to protect them during the team-building trip. On the way there, Shijin Buglas Zhang was introducing the place to the students. But with Assistant Wen here, things are going to get complicated. He's one of Professor Ma's people. Assistant Wen's ability is stretch neck. His neck can stretch very long. He uses it to gather intel. His eyes and ears can shift to any position. He's extremely sharp. Any student caught cheating or acting sneaky, he spots them all, without exception. He can even monitor several classrooms at once. And in terms of combat power, he's stronger than their usual assistants. At this moment, Shiotan said he had an idea, but it was a bit risky. Right in front of them was a villa rented by the school, complete with a pool. Clearly, the school had gone all out this time. In a place like this, they didn't even need to hide their tails anymore. The boys blushed watching the girls playing and splashing in the water. Calm down, guys. Just as they were getting entranced by the scene. You guys are being way too careless. You've completely exposed. Play hard if you want, but be careful. After all, this is still outside school grounds. Shotan could only nod helplessly. By then, Juinheng had quietly crept up behind Assistant 1. He was going to use his ability to paralyze him. That's right. This was Shotan's plan. Pretend to have fun first. Lower Assistant 1's guard, then secretly inject him with poison from behind. Shotan had been poisoned by Juinheng before. It took him till the next day to recover. If they could knock him out for just one night, that would be enough time to flee to S-Town. Step by step, he approached. Now's the time. The next moment, Assistant Wen's high heel stepped on Juinheng's foot. It looked painful just watching. They really underestimated what it meant to be a teaching assistant. Plan failed. Assistant Wen then scolded Juinheng for not watching where he walked. Someone help treat this student. Juinheng had let his guard down too much. A careless mistake. He's definitely not easy to deal with. Next plan, water guns. The water had been laced with a tiny amount of blur acid. Just a splash in the eyes would cause temporary blindness for an hour. The next second, Daohua aimed at him coldly. Assistant Wen, look over here. At that moment, Assistant Wen hadn't noticed yet. Just as it was about to hit him, he stretched his neck and dodged, then snatched the water gun from Daohua and started firing wildly at them. They all panicked and ran. The water gun aimed straight for Shijin's face. Shiotan flew over and blocked it with his back. You okay? Another failure. They each tried different methods afterward. Digging a pit trap for him. Failed. Tying him up while he slept. Failed. Getting him drunk in a drinking contest. Failed. He dealt with all of them effortlessly. Now it was almost dark. If this kept up, The trip would end with no result. Not a single opening to exploit. Everyone was about to give up. Suddenly, Shijin stood up and said, "If this was us at the start of the semester, this might have been the end. But Professor Chi has gone all out for us these past weeks. He analyzed each person's weaknesses and gave everyone assignments tailored to those flaws. I think it's time we show the results of our training. There's still one last idea. And it's him. This time, it'll work." All along, Assistant One had been suspicious. These kids were clearly acting strange. Always up to something odd. He was considering whether to report it to the school. Just then, Shijin approached, bringing over a bottle of champagne. If the other drinks weren't enough, have one more glass of this. Assistant One thought to himself, they probably spiked this one with sleeping pills. But whatever. He had developed resistance to common poisons and sedatives. But as soon as he smelled it, without drinking, the cup had already fallen to the floor. It took effect instantly. His whole body was trembling. This was Sierra's signature move, shedding silken illusion, a spring dream hypnosis technique. They altered the arousal effect of the mamao extract into a hypnotic one. It worked. Though it was kind of unethical. From now on, no matter what happens, he won't remember any of it. A group of students actually hypnotized this teacher. No matter what they do, he won't recall it. The group then prepared to leave for Town S to attack the pet shop. They had to return by early morning. Although Assistant One was asleep under hypnosis, they had to wake him up by morning at the latest, so he'd just think he got drunk and avoid suspicion. Tonight, they would take care of Assistant One. Just then, Duoyun and Shinya said they wanted to go with Shiokan's group, even though the targets were all dangerous individuals. They too had grown stronger under Professor Chi's guidance, so they wanted to help as support. Then Shiokan suddenly realized, it was too late at night. All the buses had stopped running. How would they get there? Right then, Zhuan Heng arrived with a car he had already prepared. Get in quickly. Turns out, he had gotten his license during an assignment by the breeder at the orphanage. He needed to drive children from the orphanage to the farm. Zhuan Heng added, "You all need to be mentally prepared. This time, we're heading to one of the breeder's personally run facilities. We don't know what to expect. But security is likely very tight. One wrong move, and it could cost your life. If you're caught, you might be forced into feeding training." But Zhuan Heng still believed in them. That's why he turned to Shiokan. He used to believe power ruled everything, which led him to be captured by the breeder. But after losing to Shiokan that day, he realized strength isn't everything. Zhuan Heng believed that this time Shiokan would once again show something beyond the law of the... Cut to the next scene. A man was video calling the breeder. Recently, some new specimens had been destroying parts of the facility, but they had been tranquilized now. The elderly man Due to the pain, he required constant painkillers. So the breeder left him in the man's care for now. Then the man noticed an object on the table. He asked the breeder what to do with it. The breeder replied they didn't need it. Just burn it. But just as he was about to toss it into the furnace, a hand suddenly flew in, grabbing him by the throat. He even vomited stomach acid. Shiokan slammed him down and pinned him to the floor. "Who the hell are you?" The man shouted. "Someone catch him. Whoever does gets to eat him." Just then, a group of fed specimens rushed out and charged at Shiokan. The next moment, Huaxin and Daohua burst in through the window. Both of them struck simultaneously, launching an attack, knocking the fed specimens flying. Daohua, how many people are in this building? She used her vibration sensing technique. They're all gathered in one place. They're perfectly still. Must be a feeding session. Those locked up for training. No need to worry about the ones still locked up. Meanwhile, Shiokan impatiently pinned the short spear man down. "Tell me, where are the breeder and the predator?" The man replied, "The breeder's not here. Let me go and I'll tell you where he is." But as he secretly reached for a button, Shijin kicked him unconscious. "No need for you. This must be the stolen antidote research data from the school." At that moment, Huaxin also found a crate of jungle juice. This mission was a huge haul. Next moment, Daohua was startled by the sound of a vibrating alarm. The screen showed an injection of painkillers, directly administered to the old man in the ward, who then opened his eyes and woke up. At the same time, the assistant mirror here stood dazed. As the words fell, an explosion burst out from within, blazing heat rushing straight at them. Continuous bombardments followed. With a deafening boom, the ceiling was about to collapse. And there was no dodging it. Xiao-chan quickly grabbed two people, throwing them forward, turning to urge Shijin to get out. In the crisis, Shijin was still saving someone, because she knew where the breeder was. As she picked up the man, unaware, the ceiling above was about to crash down, but Xiao-chan and Zhuanheng braced it with both hands. "Get him out now," Shijin replied. "Hold on a sec. I'll get this man out and come help you." Two people weren't enough. They needed one more. The next second, Zhuanheng used his lone strike to knock Xiao-chan away, holding the ceiling alone. "Listen up. There's likely a special subject in this building's basement. You're the only one who can take them down. The rest is up to you, Xiao-chan." With that, his arms gave out, and he was buried inside, as Xiao-chan shouted from the side. The next moment, a fierce explosion struck his face, blood gushing as he collapsed nearby. Then a foot stomped on the wound on Xiao-chan's face. "You're that damn professor's student, huh? The one who turned me into this wreck. On the other side, Shijin ran out, asking if everyone was okay. They said they had only minor injuries, so she handed the man to them, turning to rush back and save Shio-chan. Seeing the figure ahead, Shijin called out, "Shio-chan!" The figure immediately attacked her. Looking closely, it was a feeding-trained subject. Suddenly, a swarm of feeding-trained subjects broke free and charged at them. Then a glowing red stone flew towards Shijin, triggering another massive explosion. Che Huaixin and the others watched Shijin with worry. "Damn, I couldn't control the force. What a disgrace to predators." Daohua said with a grin, "It's you. The one who bombed our school and attacked Professor Chi." With that, he charged forward. "Can you still bring yourself to fight?" Daohua suddenly halted his attack, realizing Shio-chan was... The old man had already planted bombs on Shio-chan. Any reckless move would detonate them. This guy was utterly despicable. The old man overheard Daohua mention Professor Chi and knew they were his students. Since that day Professor Chi blasted him. He'd been in agony from burns every day. Killing the professor's students was the only way to vent his rage. Shio-chan, his wounds healed, glared coldly. "Try it." Looks like that last explosion was too weak. The next second, he flashed forward, grabbing Shio-chan's neck. "As you wish, I'll kill you." His neck snapped like an egg. Who's next? But then Shio-chan reappeared behind him. The old man gritted his teeth, unleashing another powerful explosion. The nearby forest caught fire, the heat and flames blinding. This time, he put his arm into the blast. "What are you staring at, doctor? Come kill me." The old man's eyes widened, staring in disbelief. How could someone not die? This guy had been blasted multiple times, his wounds healing each time. Even a crushed neck didn't stop him. The old man's pupils dilated, left with no choice but to detonate against Shijin. The next second, Shijin's wounds healed instantly, and she charged forward, her powerful strike forcing the unprepared old man back half a step. He was stunned. Her wounds healed that fast? If that's how it is. The old man unleashed his explosive ant momentum, firecracker, causing continuous explosions on Shijin's body. As Daohua rushed at the old man from behind, unaware, the old man had already planted bombs underground. The old man, cautious by nature, always planned his moves carefully. No matter where he goes, he plants traps. The ground beneath us now is full of mines. Explosions erupt, screams everywhere. A useless teacher only raises useless students. The next moment, his arm was grabbed by Shijin. Caught. Earlier, the assistant fought the explosive predator, finding remote explosions intriguing, learning they're triggered by pheromones released to the venom. So he must have a detonation device on him. Shijin found it. It's his arm. Yelling to Huaixin, "Cut off his arm, and we'll win." Boosted by Daohua. Leaping to dodge mines, the old man sees and detonates. The blast throws Huaixin off course. Only the old man's face is seen. He sees feeder mutants rushing in, and sneaks off into the woods. How could they let their prey escape? Leaving the feeders to Daohua and the others, Shijin chases him, unleashing Tai-flowing strike. Another explosion kicks up thick smoke. As it clears, Shijin underestimated him. The wounded predator is still out of his league. Shijin's self-healing is strong, but his fighting skills are basic. Suddenly, the old man's blood-red pupils dilate. Even the strongest healing has limits. If he keeps fighting Shijin, planting ice ants, he's sure he'll win. As he speaks, Shijin grabs a blade, aiming for his upper arm, slicing it clean off. The next second, the old man's arm lies beside him. Now he can't detonate. The trembling old man still talks tough. "You think I fled because I was cornered? I left that place because of you. The feeders I summoned were just food for that monster." At the same time, Daohua senses danger, her face paling, shouting for everyone to run. The ground here is quaking. Something dangerous is coming. Shijin still doesn't know what's happening. The next moment, a monster bursts out. Shioken regains consciousness amid facing a giant centipede, the worst possible scenario. Awake, Shioken is confused. What happened in this time? Then a voice rings out. "Impressive. You found the breeding ground." That confident tone, it's definitely the breeder. A few rookies sneaking around behind the school's back without Professor Chi to rein you in. You've gone wild, huh? Every time the breeder's plans go off track. Shioken's always involved. I once wanted to claim Shioken. Seems we're fated rivals. The breeder orders the giant centipede to devour Shioken and the others, sparing none. Its overwhelming presence makes everyone pale. The centipede barely moves, and they struggle to dodge. Huaixin can't escape. The centipede suddenly stops. Looking back, Daohua's grabbing its leg. She says, "Since we can't escape, we have no choice. At least land a kick." Seeing a chance, Huaixin leaps onto the centipede. Before it reacts, Huaxin unleashes Tai Longblade. A massive scythe slashes its chest, thinking it's a fatal blow. He sees only a scratch on its chest. As the centipede turns, its force makes Daohua lose her. The next moment, it swings its tail. Shiokan yells, "Watch out." The centipede smacks Daohua. Against absolute power, no tricks matter. With their current strength, Shiokan's group can do nothing. They'll just become its food. This is the law of the weak and strong. The unchanging truth of the world. Shiokan can't get close. He flies high into the air. The centipede can't reach that height. As it turns to devour Daohua and the others, Grandmaster used his sticky silk 6 times, directly smearing sticky liquid on his silk threads, luring prey like fishing to bring them closer, then tossing them away to the other side. Next second, a tail suddenly struck in front of him, landing a heavy blow on Duoyin. He was sent flying into the air. Just as the giant centipede was about to catch him, a green light flashed. Shiotsan managed to save him in time, landing him safely. At this moment, Duoyin was already severely injured. That monster really is savage. It never tires. How long is it going to chase us? Turns out the giant centipede is just really hungry. Once it eats them, it will stop chasing. The centipede only eats moving food. Those they killed earlier were originally its meals. Now that they're gone, it's chasing them non-stop. Ahead lies the city. If it goes on a rampage there, it'll be disastrous. They have no choice but to stop it here. Fortunately, the others have arrived too. Shiotsan looked up at the centipede, already forming a battle plan in his mind. Want to hear it? Meanwhile, bringing over a group of uneaten individuals. As for Shiotsan's plan, he'll be the bait to lure the giant centipede away. The others prepare according to his instructions. This centipede isn't an ordinary monster. Normal methods won't work at all. Li Juanheng once told Shiotsan, there would be a centipede. It would deal a heavy blow to the breeder. Li Juanheng brought them here to take down this beast, so it's do or die this time. Shiotsan took the lead, baiting the centipede into a chase. He turned his head, then charged up green energy in his fist, and punched straight at the centipede's face, a blow that sent bug shadows flying. This was Shiotsan's hunter stance. While the centipede was still pressing forward, Huaxin jumped off the cliff to attack. Grandmaster slid across the black rock surface, slicing it apart. Next moment, Daowai used the Grandmaster's iron gauntlets and smashed the top of the black rock. Meanwhile, Shijin and the others arrived at the temple. In the broadcast room, they announced, due to heavy rain 2 days ago, a landslide has occurred in the area. For your safety, please evacuate immediately. Upon hearing this, everyone noticed the rumbling from the mountain and quickly became alert to seeing that everyone had cleared. Because of the earlier downpours, the ground was soaked. Water seeped into the earth, making a landslide easier to trigger. Huge rocks tumbled down and smashed the centipede. It looked like they had succeeded. Then the centipede roared like a beast. It could burst out of the ground even like that. All the tactics they'd racked their brains for seemed to be for nothing. But not entirely. The next second, the centipede suddenly collapsed. No matter how strong a monster is, that earlier blow definitely landed. It had already been wounded by Professor Chi and was now fighting on an empty stomach that had drained its strength. Though with some food, it could recover. It chased along the landslide path. Shotan once again baited it away further, right beneath the giant Buddha statue. The centipede, still in pursuit, had also suffered from the landslide. Its energy should be nearly depleted. Shotan had waited for this moment. Now was the time to strike and finish it. The others rushed in, determined to take down the centipede here. Shijin charged forward, dragging Shinya single-handedly, as Shotan clashed with the giant centipede again. Just as a giant claw was about to stab him, Shinya launched a dynamic vine to entangle the centipede's body, but the creature was too strong. She struggled to hold on for long. Seeing an opening, Shijin jumped onto the centipede's back and took out a chainsaw and slashed it. The next moment, the centipede let out a miserable cry. Then Shotan's fist landed once more on the centipede's face. The next moment, the giant centipede let out a painful scream, followed by Shotan's fist landing on its face once again. He was sent flying instantly. No time to catch his breath. Don't stop now. It's Huaxin's turn. Shotan heard through the wireless headset. Huaxin and her group were suddenly surrounded by a new batch of fed specimens. These ones were much tougher than the earlier ones. Turns out the earlier ones were just food for the giant centipede. These were the real combat-ready specimens. They were on a whole different level. Unexpectedly, they even triggered a landslide manually. They should have subjected Kiandawawa to feeding training from the start. Too bad. They were about to die here. While Shotan was calling out to Huaxin's group, the giant centipede kept chasing. It was pulled back again, but Shijin lost her balance the next second and fell hard. Shotan's group had decent teamwork, but against the centipede's outer shell, the damage they dealt was still far from enough. The breeder continued. In the face of absolute power, Everything else is meaningless. This outcome is your own doing. You chose to return to being mere humans. You chose the path of the weak. What's wrong with wanting to be human again? Would you rather live like beasts, like you? There's no real difference between the human world and the beast. Both follow the law of the jungle. The breeder himself was once a weakling in the human world. The human version of survival of the fittest is even filthier, even uglier. Those who aren't at the top of the food chain even have to fight for the grass that herbivores eat. From birth, they're condemned to unfair lives. A systematic defect. They're discriminated against for unjust reasons. Cast aside. What I will do is destroy and rebuild it. Rebuild a society where power, not wealth or influence, defines strength. If Shotan is willing to join, I'll spare his life. Let's see what he chooses. Faced at that moment, Shotan remembered what Professor Sure once told him. To keep refining yourself. To prove to the world that you're not a monster, but a human even more ruthless than monsters. To ignite your fighting spirit. Overcome your ugliness and cowardice. To conquer it and grow beyond it. That's what it means to be human. Two of them held down the giant centipede again. Then Shotan initiated his hunting stance and tossed his rifle. This time, his target wasn't the centipede. It was the Buddha head. The Buddha statue came crashing down. One massive hit smashed the centipede into serious injury. Look closely. The giant centipede was crushed by the falling Buddha. Its body was broken and on the verge of death. It looked like it was done for. But the next second, its eyes suddenly opened wide. It roared and lunged at Shotan. Shotan flew upward just in time to dodge it. Even with a shattered body, it was still that persistent. With its prey gone, it turned toward Shijin and the others. Shinya was fleeing, screaming for help. Shotan flew toward them, shouting, "Grab my hands." Shinya clutched his hands like grabbing a lifeline. Shijin knew, if the centipede's body was broken, it couldn't possibly survive. It must be a last struggle before death. He picked up a buzzsaw from the ground and began cutting through the centipede's hand. Just hold out a little longer. Suddenly, Shijin was grabbed. Professor Ma's leg got bitten by the centipede. Shijin screamed in pain. Shotan had no choice but to fly at the centipede again. Overwhelmed, he charged straight in. As the claw got too close to Shotan, it was suddenly severed. Blood splattered everywhere from the centipede. It was Assistant Wen who arrived and saved Shijin too. No wonder Professor Ma made him the safety officer. He was supposed to still be under hypnosis. Why is he here now? Turns out the hypnosis wore off in the morning. When he woke up and saw they were gone, he interrogated a few students. Midway through interrogation, a support request came through. The support request came from Dawa. There were too many guardian units. Fighting was tough. Spotting a chance, she tore off their legs one by one. These thick-skinned brutes, no matter how much they hit them, they wouldn't fall. They even coordinated with each other. Suddenly, a barrage of poisonous spikes shot out from behind Dawa, hitting the guardian units, making them shriek. Jiwenheng arrived late due to the heavy rubble. It took him quite some time to get through. Invisible Man looked at him strangely. "You're actually still alive?" Just as he finished speaking, poisonous spikes flew at him, but he dodged them using invisibility. There were too many enemies. Jiwenheng already had a plan. He launched a powerful poison barrage. The spikes turned into poison dragons, ruthlessly biting the guardian units. These spikes contained potent venom, strong enough to kill the guardians. It only took one move. Meanwhile, Shotan looked at the giant centipede, then launched a flurry of dragonfly mode attacks. He twisted through the air in rapid succession, then turned into a bullet, and crashed into the target at top speed. Blood burst from the centipede's mouth. It was the breeder's most carefully cultivated creature, and yet it was being beaten by a bunch of freshmen. In the final surge, Shotan's eyes sharpened. His fist clenched. Green lightning gathered. Double-barrel hunter blast in full power mode crushed the centipede in front of him. The giant centipede collapsed immediately. No signs of life. They had finally taken it down. Just as Shotan and the others let their guard down, a chunk of flesh flew into the air. Before he could react, Invisible Man forced it into Shotan's mouth. Everyone gasped in shock at the scene before them. This man had been force-fed a sample for ingestion. Shijin immediately rushed over to stop it, shouting that it wasn't too late if Shotan spit it out now. But Invisible Man calmly floated over and said, "He swallowed it. The ingestion is done. That flesh is probably already being absorbed." The breeder's voice continued from the phone. "From this moment on, his body will crave ingestion desperately. In just a few minutes, his humanity will vanish completely." Right now, Shotan smelled an indescribable, strange scent. Looking at Shijin, it made him crave a bite. He hadn't lost his reason yet. Still able to hold back. But just as he said that, he suddenly opened his mouth and lunged for Shijin's neck. Assistant Wen quickly restrained him, pinning him to the ground. Shijin shouted, telling him to release Shotan. "If you let him go now, he'll bite your neck again in the next second." To Shotan, everyone now looked like prey. The breeder's voice echoed from somewhere unknown. "Things are starting to get interesting. Isn't protecting students the school's core value? He merely ingests, and you're already attacking him? You spout your values so proudly every day. But at the first sign of trouble, this is what you do. Your belief is pretty weak, huh? So what's it going to be? Let him eat his classmates. Or will the school's bugs deal with Shotsan first? That scent was overpowering Shotsan's reason with primal instincts. He broke free from restraint and grabbed Assistant One by the neck, then punched him flying, roaring like a wild beast. Then he locked eyes with Shinya. He charged toward her, but Shijin blocked him, shouting, "Snap out of it. You can't do this." The sweet scent made Shotsan bite into Shijin's shoulder. It was too brutal. Shinya couldn't bear to watch. On the other side, Daohua didn't know what had happened yet, and called Shijin through the wireless phone. Zhuan Heng pressed. If feeding has already occurred, there's no turning back. He'll fully become one of the breeders, a specimen trained to serve. What will you do, Shotsan? There's no hope left for Assistant One. He must be eliminated. He kicked Shotsan to the ground, stepping on his neck. He couldn't just stand by while a student was being eaten. Just as the blade was about to strike, a spurt of blood shot out. Shijin had used his back to block the attack. Assistant One looked at him in confusion, thanks to his ability. Shijin's wounds healed automatically. He wasn't afraid of pain. Shijin blamed himself. He was a complete monster too. So Shotsan, let's find a way to become human together. You're not alone. Shotsan began to struggle again. He noticed the incoming Daohua, but sensed an enemy nearby. He punched the invisible man hiding next to Daohua. That guy had tried to forcibly feed Daohua too, but Shotsan had sniffed him out. Shotsan had regained consciousness. He endured even after being fed. His instincts had always been primal. Note how this man, under the effects of feeding, can now distinguish prey by scent and locate enemies. The breeder's voice came through the phone. "Fair, get out of there." A sudden purple light startled him. Zhuan Heng launched his attack. A black mamba bit into the enemy's neck. He collapsed immediately. Zhuan Heng had anticipated they'd try something sneaky. Meanwhile, Shotsan knelt again, biting his own arm to endure the urge. The phone on the ground still played the breeder's voice. "I didn't expect such a complete victory. Far beyond my expectations. This time you win. I didn't see this coming. Your willpower will eventually break. You're just barely holding on with pain. Do you really think after today, you can go back to being human?" Shotsan replied. "No doubt about it. No matter what you say, I will return to being human. I'll become number one in the department, get Cinderella, and prove everything you said is wrong. Watch carefully." Shotsan looked around at the people near him. Their scent overwhelmed him. He shouted, "Don't come near." Shotsan was clearly affected by the... He was doing everything he could to resist. It was their scent, and normal tools couldn't restrain him. Just then, several school helicopters arrived overhead. Out stepped Professor Ma, personally commanding the WASP squad to secure the site. Make sure no civilians enter the area. The ant squad began cleanup. Everything was heard in real time through Assistant Wen's headset. Shotsan had truly managed to suppress his instincts after feeding. Professor Ma asked, "Are you mentally prepared? Even if you return to school, people may still see you as a monster. They might look at you with prejudice again. Even so, will you still aim to become the top student?" Shotsan answered firmly, "Yes." After hearing that, Professor Ma injected Asura. It was a special drug developed to control fed specimens, called pumpkin carriage. It contained a small chip of Cinderella, which would enter the nervous system, blocking the insect human's sense of smell and suppressing their appetite. The drug was still experimental and could have side effects, only effective on those with retained rationality. Without it, Shotsan would have been lost, but Professor Ma saved him. Now he could no longer smell that scent. He could see people clearly again. Then, Shijin happily spread her arms, burying her head in Shochan's embrace. His friends piled on, playfully roughhousing him. Professor Ma, seeing Shochan resist the urge to ingest, let him off for now. But this incident wouldn't end with simple punishment. The details would need further discussion back at school, since his body... Though Professor Ma seemed strict, luckily, no punishment was issued. At the breeder's hideout, they found a hard drive. With it, the school could produce new Derulo again, making up for their mistakes. At the debriefing, all department professors were shocked to hear they'd found the predator and giant centipede. They were stunned. Back at school, Shochan was immediately taken to the research institute, but surprisingly, he was quickly released. They said his body showed no abnormalities. Afterward, the ant team repaired most of the damaged facilities. Still feeling guilty, they revisited the temple to pay respects. After a simple ceremony, they left. A few days later, classes resumed. As the group passed by, people started gossiping. He's the one who ingested. How could he eat human flesh? His own classmate, no less. Then isn't he just like those pet shop freaks? Hearing this, Daohua got pissed. Hot-tempered as he was, he jumped in, ready to start a fight. The group of cowards scattered under his glare. News spread so fast. It had to be the breeder's planted spies stirring trouble, trying to shake his resolve. But the group stood firm, siding with Shochan. They'd soon be second years, focusing their energy on aiming for top of the department. The next moment, a prisoner charged at Shochan. He dodged at the critical moment. Then two more people approached. "You're Shochan?" The school really took in a tasteless freshman. They were upperclassmen, top students from various departments, members of a club called Fengjiao. Upon their return, they heard Xiao-chan had defeated the giant centipede and performed ingestion. Let's see just how strong you've become after that ingestion. Within the school, there was a special club called Fengjiao. This club gathered top students from every department and grade. Only second years and above could join. Fengjiao was considered the school's core strength, tasked with handling dangerous external issues that arose outside the school. In truth, they were the school's most influential. Xiao-chan asked, "You want me to fight you here? Why should I listen to you?" But Xiao-xing, ignoring his words, charged straight at him. The next moment, Daohua stepped forward, blocking with both hands. "Don't they know? Fighting's banned on campus. No reason, and we don't even know what they're up to." As it turned out, school rule number 18 allowed Fengjiao members to use abilities for instructional purposes. At that moment, Daohua was struggling to hold them off. The next second, he was sent flying. Seeing this, their friends were instantly shocked. Daohua lost in a test of strength. Then Daohua got excited. Finally found the right guy for a real fight. Suddenly, several classmates were tied up by them. If you don't want your friends hurt, no one else interferes. We're here for Xiao-kan. We don't think someone like you deserves to be called the top of the department. Show us your strength. If you can beat Silent Sword, we'll let your classmates go. As he spoke, Xiao-kan shot straight up. In the air, Xiao-kan felt they couldn't touch him. Then he surveyed the situation from above and waited for an opening. Suddenly, Silent Sword scaled the wall, reaching Xiao-kan, about to collide. As Xiao-kan readied his aura, Silent Sword surged, knocking Xiao-kan down. On the ground, Xiao-kan opened his eyes, finding himself covered in vines. But the enemy didn't press the attack. Silent Sword whispered, "Don't make a sound. Pretend to pass out." Outside, the leader Hizaiching played along. "What's this? So weak. I heard augmented individuals become monstrously strong. And it's over this quick?" The crowd murmured. "Guess rumors are just rumors, not real. This ended too easily. They said he consumed the giant centipede's flesh. Looks like that's fake too. Could it be they're trying to lower everyone's guard?" Hizaiching turned to leave, then stopped and said, "I hear you've got a top contender for the department. Not much time left this semester. When you're sophomores, we'll meet again, freshmen." Scene shifts to the classroom. Shijin, concerned, asked Xiao-kan, "You sure you don't need the infirmary?" Xiao-kan says he's not hurt. At this point, he doesn't know who those guys were. Never seen them before. Shijin tells Xiao-kan, Fengjiao, a club of elite upperclassmen, started as a group of top students bonding. Later became an official club. They've been on missions all second semester. At the same time, at the club, leader Hizaiching sighs, back from missions, and cleaning up after freshmen. Silent Sword cuts in, calling him out. "Tough talk, soft heart. Weren't you the one who offered to help?" Hizaiching notices, his back armor's cracked. Not sure when it happened. Hong Yoxiang starts healing him. "Good. I've decided. The next Fengjiao member is him." This man's minions were all caught by the school, yet he's lounging in a hot spring. Behind him, a woman appears, ready to join the soak, to casually comfort him. He turns and says, "No need for that," and asks if the job's done. The breeder's task is complete. "But I don't get why we did it. Capturing some random person, the district's governor." The breeder replies, "Because it's not just the school we're toppling, but all of human society. We need puppets outside. Preparations are nearly done. Everything's almost ready." Though that dragonfly disrupted the breeder's plans, no matter what he does, they're all used to leaving a way out for themselves. The pet shop is still operating. If those rookies try to interfere again, the breeder has already arranged suitable replacements. The ones who defeated the old man were first-year students, even though the breeder sent others to deal with them. The school is currently on high alert. They'll have to wait for the right time. Might as well take a break for now. At the same time, the cockroach girl was still thinking about what the dragonfly boy said, but she swore she'd eat him next time. A spy planted in the school by the breeder brought good news. Apparently, Professor Chi is now in a vegetative state. The scene shifts to the infirmary where they gaze at him. The school has mobilized the best doctors and equipment, but there's still no sign of recovery. There's nothing they can do but keep waiting. Temporarily inviting another lecturer will take time, and it's rumored there's a spy from the pet shop among the faculty, so it's not safe to keep classes going. All courses for this semester are officially ended. Meanwhile, the others were throwing a party to celebrate the success of the surprise attack. Jiwenheng looked at something on his phone. Someone posted an update on social media about the kids at the orphanage. Jiwenheng invited Daohua to go check it out together. It was Xiaoxin who gave Jiwenheng the account for the kids' new orphanage, so he could follow their updates. Huixin looked on jealously at how close Jiwenheng and Daohua were. By the way, no one knows where Xiaoxin and Shijin went. Turns out, they were on a date. They had agreed earlier to drink alone together. But she didn't expect him to pull her away from the party like that today, and Xiaoxin even suggested they drink in her room. Was he going to confess? Suddenly, Xiaoxin interrupted her daydreaming. Turns out the ingestion effect in him hadn't worn off yet. Professor Ma's, but he could still smell a little of it. With so many people at the party, he feared losing control, so he pulled Shijin away. After the break, they'd become second years. Could he still stay in school like this? Before he could finish, Shijin shoved her finger into his mouth. Xiaoxin was completely confused. Shijin said, "If you can't hold it back, bite me. A little wound like this will heal fast." She told Xiaoxin not to worry, that he could stay at school. Everyone has secrets they don't want others to know. Once a secret is exposed, it's the same as revealing your weakness. The next moment, Xiaoxin hugged Shijin tightly and said he could hold on, but only when weaknesses are revealed can people truly grow stronger. In the blink of an eye, a new semester began. They were now at the Fengjiao Club. The leader was getting impatient. Suddenly, a voice came from the entrance. It was Shijin, last year's top student, and Xiaoxin, the runner-up. The club members rose to greet them, saying, "Finally, you're here." The two of them broke all records for first years. "Let's have a drink to start. So, let's talk."